Chapter 1991. By the lake, in front of the hut. It was drizzling, and the rain fell silently on the lake, forming little ripples. Not far from the lake, there was a bamboo hut, and in front of the bamboo hut, a woman was lying. The woman wore a red dress, and her legs were crossed. She held an ancient book in her hand, and she was reading it with relish. At this moment, the woman suddenly put down the ancient book in her hand, and she looked not far away. In the distance, a man was slowly walking over. Seeing this man, the woman was slightly taken aback. The person who came was Yi Xian. Yi Xian walked in front of the woman and smiled. Disaster, long time no see. The woman in front of him was the law of disaster that caused him to suffer a lot. Disaster looked at Yi Xian. I thought you were dead. Yi Xian smiled. How could that be? With that, he glanced around, and then said, Only you? Disaster nodded. They all went out. Yi Xian asked, Where to? Calamity shrugged. Wandering around. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, Did Dao Yi come back? Disaster shook her head. No. We didn't see her again. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian took out a storage ring, placed it in front of Disaster, and then turned to leave. Disaster glanced at the storage ring, and then said, Wait. Yi Xian turned to look at Disaster, and said with a smile, What? Disaster was silent for a moment, and then said, You. At this point, she paused, and then said, You can go. Yi Xian. Disaster glanced at Yi Xian. Xiaodao and Little Misfortune are in Heavenly Capital City. Mu Xiaodao. Little Misfortune. Yi Xian smiled slightly. Thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. Disaster looked at the storage ring in front of her, and didn't speak for a long time. Heavenly Capital City. Yi Xian came to Heavenly Capital City, and he glanced at the entire city. In the next moment, he frowned. Because he didn't sense Mu Xiaodao and Little Misfortune. Did they leave? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian released his divine sense. In the next moment, his divine sense spread out like a net. In an instant, everything within a radius of tens of millions of miles was enveloped by his divine sense. Soon, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly, and in the next moment, he disappeared on the spot. In a certain place, Mu Xiaodao and Xiao Er were standing back to back, surrounded by dozens of alien experts. Alien dimensional people. Back then, because of Yi Xian, Dao Yi's former clansmen didn't invade this universe again. However, the hatred between them and Calamity and the others hadn't been resolved. Once the two sides met, they would definitely fight. Mu Xiaodao glanced at those dimensional people. Fuck, I didn't expect to run into these trash. Xiao Er said calmly, So be it. What are you afraid of? Mu Xiaodao asked in a deep voice, How many do you want to fight? Xiao Er was about to speak when a man suddenly appeared in front of the two women. The person who came was Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian, the two women were stunned. Yi Xian blinked. You don't recognize me? F***ck. Mu Xiaodao looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. You're not dead yet. Yi Xian's complexion immediately darkened. At this time, Mu Xiaodao walked in front of Yi Xian, lightly patted Yi Xian's face, and said, You're really alive. Yi Xian. Mu Xiaodao sized up Yi Xian, then said, What are you doing here? Yi Xian smiled. Aren't you happy to see me? Mu Xiaodao was about to speak, but at this time, one of the dimensional people next to her fiercely said, Are you guys done? You. Yi Xian suddenly turned his head. Did I allow you to speak? As soon as he finished speaking, a sword directly pierced the forehead of that dimensional person. Bang! That dimensional person directly turned into nothingness. Everyone was dumbfounded. Mu Xiaodao and Xiao Er's eyes were also filled with astonishment. Instantly killed? At this time, one of the dimensional people said in a trembling voice, You. Who are you? Yi Xian looked at that dimensional person. You're a dimensional person? He naturally hadn't forgotten about this race, because Dao Yi was one of them. Of course, he didn't have a good impression of this race. That dimensional person in the lead was about to speak, when Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, "Kill them." Yi Xian laughed and flicked his sleeves. Bang! More than 10 dimensional people disappeared on the spot. They were directly wiped out. Seeing this, Mu Xiaodao couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Awesome! Xiao Er glanced at Yi Xian, but didn't say anything. Yi Xian laughed. Xiao Er, are you interested in following me to a new place? Mu Xiaodao immediately shook her head. Not interested. Yi Xian didn't understand. Why not? Mu Xiaodao calmly said, the new place you're talking about is much stronger than this place, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Mu Xiaodao shrugged. If we go there now, won't we become the younger brother of the younger brother? Yi Xian, Mu Xiaodao blinked. Why don't you give us some inheritances and resources? After we increase our strength, we'll go find you. Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. You really aren't polite. Mu Xiaodao chuckled. No problem, right? Yi Xian rolled his eyes at Mu Xiaodao. Then, he opened his palm, and 2 storage rings flew in front of the 2 girls. Mu Xiaodao didn't hold back at all. She directly picked up the storage rings. When she saw what was inside, her eyes instantly lit up. Yi Xian smiled. Are you really not coming with me? Mu Xiaodao shook her head. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Er. Xiao Er hesitated for a moment, then also shook her head. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then opened his palm, and 2 rays of sword light entered the 2 girls' eyebrows. I left a wisp of sword qi in your bodies. If you have any problems, activate the sword qi. As long as I'm alive, I'll rush over at any time. Mu Xiaodao glanced at Yi Xian. How strong are you now? Yi Xian smiled. Invincible. Invincible. Mu Xiaodao rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Can you beat your sister? Yi Xian's expression froze. Mu Xiaodao asked, can you beat her? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, compared to Qing, I should still be a little bit weaker. But it shouldn't be that big. Xiao Ta, Mu Xiaodao shook her head. You never speak a word of truth. Yi Xian laughed. He looked around, then said, I'm leaving. Mu Xiaodao nodded. Let's go. Come back often in the future. We don't really care about the things, just give us some. The main thing is to come back often. We actually miss you. Yi Xian glared at Mu Xiaodao. Like hell I'll believe you. Saying that, he looked at Xiao Er. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Xiao Er, why do I feel like we're a little estranged? Xiao Er looked at Yi Xian. Is that so? Yi Xian smiled. I feel like it. Xiao Er was silent. Mu Xiaodao suddenly said, of course it's estranged. You've been gone for so long, we thought you were dead. Yi Xian smiled. It's my fault. Mu Xiaodao nodded. If you want to leave, then leave quickly. Xiao Er isn't angry at you. Just come back often in the future and bring some things back. If you really can't come back, then get someone to bring the things back. We'll understand. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn, why are you acting like a bandit? After chatting with the 2 girls for a while, Yi Xian rode his sword and left. After Yi Xian left, Xiao Er looked at the end of the galaxy in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao said disdainfully, Xiao Er, I despise you. Xiao Er looked at Mu Xiaodao and frowned. What do you mean? Mu Xiaodao said calmly, you like him but don't say it. You're such a coward. Xiao Er said angrily, who likes him? Mu Xiaodao shrugged. Fine, fine. If you don't like him, then continue waiting. This guy is extremely thick-skinned, strong, and a swordsman. A powerful swordsman. If you don't take the initiative, you won't have a chance. Xiao Er was furious and wanted to say something. At this moment, Mu Xiaodao said again, just you wait. If I like a man, I'll go after him. If I can't get him, I'll sleep with him. If I can't sleep with him, I'll cut him up. If I can't sleep with him, no one else can. Xiao Er was speechless. Yi Xian returned to Dao border. Daolin Nation. When he learned that Yi Xian had arrived, Nakayama of Silla came out to welcome him personally. When he saw Yi Xian, Nakayama of Silla laughed. Young Master Yi, are you going to that legendary alternate world? Alternate world. That place had a real infinite realm boss. Yi Xian thought about it and then shook his head. No. Hearing that, Nakayama of Silla was stunned. Yi Xian smiled. If I go now, I'll get beaten up. I'm going to rest until I reach infinite realm. This time, I don't want to be a little brother. I want to enter the next map in an invincible manner. Nakayama of Silla was speechless. Yi Xian said again, Senior, I need to go into seclusion here for some time. Nakayama of Silla said solemnly, all right. I'll protect you. Yi Xian smiled. Thank you. Saying that, he followed Nakayama of Silla to a starry cultivation ground. This was where Nakayama of Silla usually cultivated. Nakayama of Silla said, Young Master Yi, you can cultivate here. No one will disturb you. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Thank you. Nakayama of Silla smiled. No problem. Yi Xian nodded and didn't say anything else. He entered Xiao Ta. After entering Xiao Ta, Yi Xian went to Yan Bianshan. At this moment, Yan Bianshan was like a statue. He didn't move at all and didn't have any aura. Yi Xian was speechless. He hadn't expected that Yan Bianshan still hadn't reached infinite realm. After all, Yan Bianshan had been cultivating in Xiao Ta for almost 300 years. Yi Xian said softly, looks like infinite realm isn't that easy to reach. As he spoke, he found a place and sat down cross-legged. After that, the inheritance that Dao Ling had left for him appeared in his mind. The inheritance contained some of her experiences and methods to reach infinite realm. Besides that, there was also some methods to use the green profound sword. However, he didn't study it for now. His top priority was to reach infinite realm first. Because there was a huge gap between his current strength and infinite realm. Even the green profound sword could make up for this gap. Time passed little by little in the cultivation world. Chapter 1992. Limitless Realm? What was Limitless Realm? As the name suggested, it meant that there were no realms. The Taoist heart was at ease and was not restricted by anything. That was Limitless Realm. How difficult was it for a person to have a Taoist heart at ease? To reach Limitless Realm, one not only had to cultivate, but they also had to understand. In fact, the most important thing was still this understanding. In the following days, Yi Xian began to cultivate in isolation. He knew very well that this was his chance. Because he had no enemies now, no one would target him for no reason. His next destination was the alternate world. Before that, he had to reach Limitless Realm. He really didn't want to go to the next place and be a little brother. Cultivation knew no time. Time passed bit by bit. 100 years later. On this day, Yan Bianshan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. In the next moment, she slowly stood up. The moment she stood up, the entire world inside Xiao Ta became illusory, but it quickly returned to normal. Yan Bianshan looked around, and a trace of vicissitudes flashed in her eyes. After a long time, she suddenly took a step forward. With this step, she was already in front of Yi Xian. Looking at Yi Xian, who was already in meditation, she remained silent. After a long time, Yan Bianshan turned around and took a step forward. With this step, she was already away from Xiao Ta. In the starry sky, Yan Bianshan looked up. At this moment, Nakayama of Silla suddenly appeared in front of her. Seeing Yan Bianshan, Nakayama of Silla's pupils suddenly shrank. In the next moment, he bowed deeply, Mountain Lord Yan. He knew that Yan Bianshan had reached limitless realm. Yan Bianshan was expressionless, where the law enforcement sect in Yinjie. Nakayama of Silla hurriedly said, "They have been killed by young Master Yi." Yan Bianshan frowned slightly, "He is alone?" Nakayama of Silla nodded. Yan Bianshan was silent. After a long time, Yan Bianshan looked at the horizon and softly said, "I know." Nakayama of Silla lowered his head slightly and didn't speak. At this moment, Yan Bianshan said, "I will protect him." Nakayama of Silla bowed deeply and then quietly retreated. Yan Bianshan slowly closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Inside the Shao Ta, Yi Xian was still comprehending. He had to admit that cultivation was boring. For the past 100 years, he hadn't moved at all. However, he could endure this kind of loneliness. If you want to be above others, you have to endure hardships. Another 100 years passed. On this day, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up and took a step forward. With this step, he directly arrived at the Women's Academy. The all-women's college founded by Sister Nian. Yi Xian didn't enter the Women's Academy. He was looking down from the clouds. In one of the courtyards below, he saw a woman. Yi Ling. At this moment, Yi Ling was concentrating on carving a wooden figure. Every time she carved, she would blow on it and then continue. She carved very seriously. After a long time, the small wooden figure in her hand turned into Yi Xian's appearance. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Yi Ling's face. In the clouds, Yi Xian also smiled when he saw this. The moment he laughed, the surrounding clouds began to boil. Gradually, the entire sky and the entire divine Dao nation began to tremble. For a moment, countless people were shocked and looked in the direction of Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Ling, who was below, seemed to sense something. She suddenly raised her head, and at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Ling was slightly stunned. The next moment, she directly threw herself into Yi Xian's arms. "Brother, brother." Yi Xian gently hugged Yi Ling and smiled. In Shao Ta, he had encountered a bottleneck, an invisible bottleneck. He did not know what was blocking him. He only knew that no matter how hard he tried, he could not cross that barrier. In the end, he decided to go out for a walk. In the instant that he saw Yi Ling, he suddenly understood what the barrier that was blocking him was. It was his original intention of cultivating the sword. What was his original intention of cultivating the sword? Was it to show off? Obviously not. His original intention of cultivating the sword, Yi Xian, was to protect his little sister. His little sister was his original intention, and she was his everything. But gradually, apart from protecting his little sister, he gained other ambitions and desires. For example, invincibility, showing off. Was it wrong? That was right. However, one should not forget one's original intention. He once again thought of what Qing had said to him. Only by not forgetting one's original intention could one be invincible. Not forgetting one's original intention. Holding Yi Ling in his arms, Yi Xian smiled again. In that instant just now, he had actually reached the limitless state. My heart is at ease. When one's heart is at ease, it doesn't mean abandoning everything or being heartless, it means not forgetting one's original intention. Meanwhile, Yi Ling spoke softly, "Big brother, I haven't seen you in a long time." Yi Xian roared with laughter, "Haven't you seen me now?" Yi Ling looked up at Yi Xian, "I want to go with you." Yi Xian nodded, "Big brother will take you with me." Yi Ling's eyes lit up when he heard this, "Really?" Yi Xian nodded, "Really? Big brother has the strength to protect you now." Yi Ling wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Yi Xian was about to speak when a woman suddenly appeared not too far away from Yi Ling. It was Mu Niannian. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he saw Mu Niannian, and then he smiled, "Big Sister Niannian." Mu Niannian sized up Yi Xian, and then she said, "You're at the limitless state now?" Yi Xian spoke solemnly, "Big Sister Niannian, you know about the limitless state?" Mu Niannian blinked, "Am I very weak in your opinion?" Yi Xian laughed bitterly, "Of course not." He paused for a moment, and then he said, "Big Sister Niannian, what realm are you at now?" Mu Niannian smiled, "How about we exchange a few blows?" Yi Xian immediately said, "All right." He just attained the limitless state, and he wanted to find someone to give it a try. Mu Niannian smiled, opened her palm, and then swept it lightly. In an instant, both she and Yi Xian entered a mysterious expanse of space. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and then he smiled, "Big Sister Niannian, I'm going to attack." Mu Niannian nodded, "Bring it on." Yi Xian opened his palm, and then the green profound sword suddenly flew out. At the instant that the green profound sword flew out, this expanse of space was instantly obliterated. The limitless state. After he attained the limitless state, he could attack at will even more. It was an extremely ordinary strike, but it possessed the might to destroy the world. Right at this moment, Mu Niannian's figure suddenly became illusory, and then a sword stabbed into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Bang! Yi Xian's figure shook violently, and then countless rays of light surged out from within him. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he smiled, "Big Sister Niannian, I have the invincible sword physique, His voice suddenly stopped. Because he noticed that his body was actually disappearing at an extremely terrifying speed. Yi Xian was stunned. Big Sister Niannian's sword could kill him when he had attained the limitless state? Mu Niannian suddenly opened his palm, and a ray of sword light flew out of Yi Xian's body. After this ray of sword light flew out, Yi Xian's body gradually returned to normal. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Big Sister Niannian." Mu Niannian retorted, "Do you think you're invincible after attaining the limitless state?" Yi Xian fell silent. Mu Niannian smiled, "Little guy, you're still very inexperienced." Yi Xian smiled bitterly, "I didn't expect you to be so strong." Mu Niannian laughed, "The first sword below the three swords. Do you think that's a joke?" Yi Xian fell silent. Mu Niannian walked to Yi Xian, and then she patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly, "Walk with me." After saying that, she walked into the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed. On the way, Mu Niannian suddenly said, "Do you know what's above the limitless state?" Yi Xian's expression froze. "Damn, I've just reached the limitless state, and now there's something above it? How could he let others live?" Seeing Yi Xian's expression, Mu Niannian laughed, "You little guy. Let's not talk about things above the limitless state, let's talk about the limitless state." Yi Xian nodded, "Big Sister Niannian, go ahead." Mu Niannian smiled, "How much do you know about the limitless state?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly, "I've just reached the limitless state, so I don't know much." Mu Niannian nodded, "You should know that your sister, Tianming, is also considered to have no realm, but do you know the difference between her realm and ours?" Yi Xian shook his head, "I don't know." Mu Niannian smiled and said, "She really doesn't have a realm." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "What do you mean?" Mu Niannian chuckled, "What I mean is that she has no realm because she's already invincible. She has no realm because she has no opponent. She has truly jumped out of all the rules, and not only that, she has also created her own rules. But this isn't the end. Every time she creates a new rule, it won't take long for her to destroy it. To put it simply, her current enemy is herself. She's constantly creating and then constantly destroying." Yi Xian. Mu Niannian smiled and said, "These days, she has always been making enemies with herself. Her no realm is different from ours. Her no realm means that she is invincible." Yi Xian said solemnly, "What about ours?" Mu Niannian said softly, "Not having a realm doesn't mean you've jumped out of it. At the very least, you have to create a brand new realm, bind yourself within it, and then finally break through." Yi Xian frowned, "Cycle?" Mu Niannian nodded, create your own realm, and then break through the realm you've created. Every time you create, it represents a brand new you, and every time you break through, it's another metamorphosis. As she spoke, she drew a circle. In the beginning, we jumped from one circle to another, but now, we have to draw our own circles, and then jump out of the circles we've drawn. Simply put, our greatest obstacle and enemy is not others, but ourselves. Yi Xian was silent. Mu Niannian smiled. You've reached the inanimate realm, but you've entered a circle drawn by someone else. To put it simply, you're still a circle breaker, but I'm already a circle drawer. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the azure profound sword appeared in her hand. She casually swung it. Chi! The azure profound sword shook violently, and in the next moment, a sword hum rang out. Yi Xian was shocked. Sister Niannian. You can use the azure profound sword? Mu Niannian knocked Yi Xian's head with the sword, and smiled. Don't look down on me, Sister Niannian. When I was invincible, you weren't even born. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Do you know what a guru is? For example, Potato and Third Young Master, they're outsiders. They don't care about monthly subscriptions, they're already above the web novel circle. As for me, I'm still in the circle, I still need monthly subscriptions, and I still need everyone's support, but I don't update much, and sometimes I'm even lacking. Everyone, what should I do? How can I become a guru? Chapter 1993. It had to be said that Yi Xian had been dealt a heavy blow. Inaction Realm. After reaching Inaction Realm, he felt that even among the veteran Inaction Realm experts, he would have a place. However, he did not expect that he would lose to Sister Nian so easily. At this moment, Mu Niannian said, I divide the cultivators in the world into 3 types. The first type are those in the circle, the second type are those who break the circle, and the third type are those who draw the circle. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm a person in the circle now? Mu Niannian nodded. Yes, because you haven't created your own realm yet. Once you create your own realm, you will be a person who breaks the circle. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then asked, are there many types of circles? In other words, after jumping out of this circle and breaking this circle, there is actually a bigger circle? Mu Niannian blinked. What do you think? Yi Xian's face darkened. Isn't this an infinite cycle? Mu Niannian chuckled. You're right. Everything in the world is a cycle, such as spring, summer, autumn, and winter, birth, aging, sickness, and death, flowers blooming and withering. As she spoke, she patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly. Congratulations on understanding the true meaning of martial arts in advance. However, your realm is not high enough. Even if you understand this, it's useless. Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Niannian suddenly said, Yi Ling, let her follow me. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, then asked, why? Mu Niannian smiled. I'll tell you later. As for her side, I've already told her. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, Sister Nian, are you hiding something from me? Mu Niannian nodded. Yi Xian quickly asked, what are you hiding from me? Mu Niannian smiled. I can't tell you. Yi Xian was speechless. Mu Niannian chuckled and said, I've been to another world. With your current strength, there are very few people who can kill you there. However, you are not invincible. Of course, when you get there, you have to walk your own path. Yi Xian asked, what about you, Sister Nian? Mu Niannian smiled and said, I'm taking them somewhere else. Yi Xian was about to ask when Mu Niannian suddenly said, I want you to meet someone. As she spoke, she turned around and flicked her sleeves. Boom! That space shattered, and within that shattered space, Yi Xian saw a woman. The woman wore a snow-white dress and held a long spear in her hand. It was Enlancio. At this moment, Enlancio was in battle with a woman in dark-colored armor. Right at this moment, Mu Niannian made a grabbing motion with her right hand, and then that expanse of space instantly became illusory. In the next moment, Lancio walked out from within. Meanwhile, the woman in dark-colored armor gazed at Mu Niannian, and then she raised her middle finger while her eyes were filled with disdain. Meanwhile, Mu Niannian raised her hand and slapped her. Slap. The dark-armored woman was sent flying by the slap. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Damn it. She really has balls. She actually dared to provoke Sister Nian. In that unknown space-time, the dark-armored woman was stunned by the slap. I actually didn't have the ability to fight back. Mu Niannian paid no further attention to the woman. She waved her right hand and closed off that expanse of space. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Niannian. Damn it. That Sister Nian is really ferocious. I have to suck up to her. Mu Niannian gazed at Lancio. How do you feel? Lancio nodded. I'm at the Void Realm. Void Realm. Yi Xian's expression froze. You've also reached the Void Realm? Lancio glanced at Yi Xian and nodded. Yi Xian, Lancio smiled. Winxiu should be reaching it soon. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Mu Niannian and said seriously, Sister Nian, why don't I follow you in the future? He felt that following Sister Nian would have a bright future. Mu Niannian laughed. You can't follow me. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Mu Niannian smiled. There's no why. Yi Xian, Mu Niannian said again, do you want to fight? Yi Xian and Lancio shook their heads. Lancio was at the Void Realm, and so was he. If the two of them didn't fight to the death, there was no way to determine a victor. And the two of them absolutely couldn't fight to the death. Fighting was meaningless. Mu Niannian smiled. All right. You guys chat. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. Yi Xian looked at Lancio and said with a smile, let's go. Lancio nodded. The two of them walked towards the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian suddenly said, what was that place just now? Lancio shook her head, I don't know either. It was Sister Nian who brought us there. Once we go there, we fight. Yi Xian fell silent. Was that place a legendary alternate world? He wasn't sure. Meanwhile, Lancio spoke softly, we've learned a lot from following Sister Nian. Yi Xian said with a smile, I can see that. He'd left Lancio and the others behind in the beginning, but Lancio had already attained the Void Realm. Her speed of improvement was truly swift. Meanwhile, Lancio suddenly asked, where are you going next? Yi Xian smiled, alternate world. Lancio nodded slightly, and then she stopped moving and said, let's part ways here. Yi Xian suddenly walked over to Lancio and grabbed her hands. Lancio gazed at Yi Xian and didn't struggle free. Yi Xian chuckled, you're still so beautiful. Lancio remained silent. Yi Xian lightly pulled Lancio into his embrace, yet Lancio didn't resist. After a short moment, she rested her head lightly on Yi Xian's shoulder. The two of them just embraced each other like that. Between them, they were friends, lovers, and confidants. Lancio was Yi Xian's first benefactor, and she was the first woman Yi Xian liked. After a long time, Lancio spoke softly, wait for me to come look for you. Yi Xian smiled, all right. 2 hours later, Yi Xian left. He didn't have to worry about Lancio and Yiling following Mu Niannian. Moreover, it was extremely beneficial to both of them. After Yi Xian left, Mu Niannian stayed by Lancio's side. She looked towards the distant horizon and smiled, he's gone. Lancio nodded. Mu Niannian smiled, then it's time for us to go as well. Lancio looked at Mu Niannian, where are we going? Mu Niannian grinned, to an even more dangerous place. Lancio hesitated for a moment, and then she asked, Big Sister Nian, exactly what level have you attained? Mu Niannian smiled, even though I'm not invincible beneath 3 strikes of the sword, no one can kill me. Lancio was slightly curious, are there any opponents beneath 3 strikes of the sword? Mu Niannian nodded, there are 3. Lancio asked again, which 3? Mu Niannian grinned, one is Miss Tuesday. Her sword Dao doesn't lose to mine. The other is a Valkyrie. This person's martial Dao is godlike. Her strength is stronger than mine. The last one is a little fellow. This fellow isn't human. As far as I know, her current body can only be broken by 3 strikes of the sword. And Lanxiu hesitated for a moment, and then she asked, how far are you from 3 strikes? Mu Nianyan blinked, I refuse to answer this question. And Lanxiu, Mu Nianyan laughed, let's go. I'll bring you guys to show off. Oh no, I'll bring you guys to train. And Lanxiu. After Yi Xian arrived at a starry sky, a woman appeared in front of him. Yan Bianshan. Yan Bianshan looked at Yi Xian, boundless realm? Yi Xian nodded. Yan Bianshan nodded, all right. As she spoke, she glanced at the distance below. That woman just now is very strong. Obviously, she was referring to Mu Nianyan. Yi Xian smiled, I'm Sister Nianyan. Yan Bianshan glanced at Yi Xian, I'm leaving. Yi Xian asked, to another world? Yan Bianshan nodded, Master is summoning me. Ah Dao Ling. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, then let's go together. Yan Bianshan nodded, all right. As the voice fell, the two disappeared at the end of the horizon. After Yi Xian and Ah Dao Ling left, Nakayama of Silla and Invakil Yi immediately began their seclusion. Actually, the two didn't have the confidence to reach Boundless Realm, but they wouldn't choose to give up. The two didn't cultivate in Shao Ta, so the time they needed was very, very long. In the vast starry sky, Yi Xian and Yan Bianshan tore through space and time. Destination, another world. About 10 hours later, a huge stone door appeared in front of Yi Xian and Ah Dao Ling. Yi Xian glanced at the stone door and was speechless. Damn, it's always a stone door. Can't there be some iron door or something? At this moment, Yan Bianshan said, we're here. Yi Xian nodded, and the two walked to the stone door. No one stopped them. Yan Bianshan waved his sleeve, and the stone door opened. A white light surged in and drowned the two. After a moment, Yi Xian opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he saw the blue sky and white clouds. A whole new world. At this moment, he suddenly turned his head, and he found that Yan Bianshan had disappeared. Where did this woman go? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He glanced around, and with this scan, his divine sense swept out millions of miles. And he didn't find any trace of Yan Bianshan. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian decided to ignore this woman. He glanced into the distance, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. Inanimate realm. The highest realm in this alternate world was only the inanimate realm. And now, he was finally no longer the little brother. He had already thought it through. If he couldn't be handsome for 3 days, he wouldn't work hard anymore. He was prepared to be a true second-generation heir and follow Qing, every day. Sometimes, living off a woman was quite delicious. Yi Xian was about to leave when a dozen people suddenly appeared in front of him. The middle-aged man in the lead sized up Yi Xian, and then he grinned. Another one. Yi Xian blinked, and then he said, you're not going to rob me, are you? The middle-aged man was slightly stunned, and then he smiled and said, you guessed right, we are going to rob you. Yi Xian flicked the dust off his clothes, and then he smiled and said, Shao Ta, I'm going to act cool. Tell me, how should I act cool? Should I kill them instantly, or should I hold back and pretend that I can't beat them, and then show my strength and scare them to death? Sigh, it's so difficult. Being invincible is so lonely. Shao Ta was silent for a moment, and then he said, damn. Chapter 1994. How? Yi Xian was at a loss. For the first time, he felt that being invincible was a form of loneliness. It was the first time he experienced such a deep sense of helplessness. No wonder Big Brother said that being invincible was lonely. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the distance suddenly said, young man, I think you're a smart person. Are you going to hand it over yourself, or do we have to do it ourselves? Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man and smiled. I'm very powerful. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned, and then he laughed. Powerful? How powerful? Have you reached the inanimate state? Yi Xian nodded and said honestly, yes. The middle-aged man's expression froze, and then he narrowed his eyes. Do I look like an idiot to you? Yi Xian was speechless. He was really speechless. Damn it. It's rare for me to tell the truth, but no one believes me. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly grabbed the air, and the space-time where Yi Xian was started to be destroyed. Soulless state. The powerful force kept shattering the space-time around Yi Xian, but Yi Xian was completely fine. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and he took a few steps back, his eyes filled with disbelief. How? How is this possible? Yi Xian said seriously. I'm really at the inanimate state. The middle-aged man gulped. Big brother. This is a misunderstanding. His voice was trembling. Yi Xian smiled. I don't think this is a misunderstanding. The middle-aged man knelt down and said with a trembling voice, Big brother, I have parents and children to take care of. Yi Xian shook his head. *T. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. Boom. The middle-aged man and the others were wiped out. Yi Xian glanced around, and then he disappeared on the spot. Soon, Yi Xian arrived before an ancient city. The city wasn't big, but it gave off an ancient aura, and it was obvious that it had a long history. After entering the city, Yi Xian looked around. There were not many people in the city. Only a few people passed by occasionally. But here, he hadn't even met many Daoless realm experts, much less limitless realm experts. Seeing this scene, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. If he came here and there were boundless realms everywhere, then he really wouldn't be working hard. In that case, what was the point of working hard? After working hard, I still have to take a beating and be the younger brother. How boring. Wasn't it nice to live off a woman? Fortunately, after he came here, the remorseless realm was truly an existence that was as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. In other words, he could rise now. He could finally act tough. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. As this terrifying aura appeared, countless people in the city raised their heads to look. Yi Xian also looked up and saw a woman slowly walking over from the horizon. The woman wore a purple dress and had long hair that draped over her shoulders. She held a sword in her right hand. Swordsman. Following the appearance of this woman, someone in the city exclaimed, It's An Lianyan. An Lianyan. As soon as these words were spoken, the city instantly seethed with excitement. An Lianyan wasn't an ordinary person. She was An Baishan's daughter, and who was An Baishan? He was a big shot in the boundless realm. After all, there were only a total of 9 boundless realm experts in this alternate world, and every single one of them was an overlord of an area, a true super big shot. This An Lianyan was definitely a powerful second-generation heir. An Lianyan glanced down from the sky. In the next moment, she flicked her thumb lightly, and a sword slashed down from the sky. The sword was very swift, and it slashed directly into a house. Bang! The house was instantly obliterated. Meanwhile, a black figure shot into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, a black-robed man appeared in front of An Lianyan. The black-robed man spoke in a hoarse voice, Missan, why do you have to kill them all? An Lianyan's face was expressionless, and she didn't waste her breath at all. She just raised her hand and slashed. Hiss! A ray of sword light slashed straight at the black-robed man. The black-robed man blocked it with his arm. Bang! The ray of sword light shattered, and then the black-robed man was blasted over 1 kilometer away. After the black-robed man stopped moving, he clenched his right hand towards An Lianyan from afar. Bang! The space above An Lianyan was suddenly torn apart, and then a huge hand that could hold up the heavens stretched out from within that space. Along with the appearance of the hand, the sky above the ancient city instantly became illusory. And Lianyan's face was expressionless. She flicked her thumb lightly, and then the sword in her sheath suddenly shot into the sky. Hiss! Along with the sound of something tearing, the hand was instantly obliterated. And Lianyan was about to attack again when the black-robed man suddenly smiled. "Listen, if we fight here, then everyone in this city will die." And Lianyan frowned when she heard this. Just as the black-robed man had said, if they fought here, then everyone in the city would die. Meanwhile, and Lianyan suddenly looked down. "Everyone, retreat! Retreat!" The people in the city immediately fled towards the outside of the city when they heard An Lianyan. Actually, many people had fled from the city while the two of them were engaged in battle. These people were quite intelligent, and they knew that such a battle would bring disaster to the innocent bystanders. So, they'd retreated successively. In the city, Yi Xian was about to leave as well. Even though he wanted to put on a show, he wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. He refused to do something so stupid. Right when he was about to leave, the black-robed man suddenly roared with laughter. "Listen, you really are benevolent." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and he was behind Yi Xian when he appeared once more. He pressed his left hand down onto Yi Xian's shoulder, and then he gazed at An Lianyan. "Listen, I'll crush his soul if you attack. I presume that you don't want to see an innocent person die because of you, right?" Yi Xian was utterly speechless. And Lianyan frowned while her gaze gradually turned icy cold. However, she didn't attack. The black-robed man smiled. "Listen, you're not related to those women, so why stand out?" And Lianyan suddenly took a step forward, and then a ray of sword light suddenly flew forward. The black-robed man was shocked, and he hurriedly hid behind Yi Xian. The sword stopped half an inch away from the center of Yi Xian's forehead. The corners of the black-robed man's mouth curled up slightly when he witnessed this scene. And Lianyan opened her palm, and the sword returned to her grasp. She stared fixedly at the black-robed man while the killing intent in her eyes seemed material. Yi Xian glanced at An Lianyan, and he was slightly surprised. This woman is really kind-hearted. Experts who'd attained such a realm usually viewed life as worthless, but this woman was slightly different. Meanwhile, the black-robed man who held onto Yi Xian's shoulder suddenly exerted force. "Young brother, I'll be troubling you to make a trip with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he brought Yi Xian with him as he shot into the sky. And Lianyan directly transformed into a ray of sword light that vanished into the horizon. In the distant sky, the black-robed man held Yi Xian in his hand as he dashed madly all along the way. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Where are you taking me?" A trace of surprise flashed through the black-robed man's eyes as he gazed at Yi Xian. "You don't seem to be afraid." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid." The black-robed man smiled. "Do you believe in fate?" Yi Xian asked, "What do you mean?" The black-robed man smiled. "Sometimes, people are like that. You clearly haven't done anything that's against reason or nature, yet misfortune just happens to descend upon you." As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. "You encountered me today, and it's fate." Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he said, "You do make a lot of sense." The black-robed man smiled. "We're here." As soon as he finished speaking, he took Yi Xian into a pitch-black hall. And as soon as the two of them entered the hall, the entire hall disappeared into thin air. Yi Xian frowned after they entered the hall. There were many women in the hall, and all of them were completely naked while some had died miserably. Yi Xian's gaze gradually turned icy cold when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, the black-robed man gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. "Reincarnate into a good family in your next life." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve and turned around to leave. However, he hadn't even taken 2 steps when he suddenly stopped, and then he turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was still standing there. The black-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly when he witnessed this scene. "I never expected that I would have misjudged you." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's face. However, his fist hadn't even come close to Yi Xian when his figure was blasted flying. In the next moment, he was nailed to a wall in the distance by a sword. The black-robed man was stunned, because he hadn't even noticed how Yi Xian had attacked. The black-robed man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Who the hell are you? Yi Xian walked slowly towards the black-robed man and smiled. Do you know what fate is? The black-robed man was speechless. Yi Xian grinned, and then he waved his right hand lightly. The black-robed man's body was blasted flying piece by piece. Death by 1,000 cuts. The black-robed man's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. You. What are you trying to do? Yi Xian stopped and looked directly at the black-robed man. Why are you asking such a stupid question? The black-robed man spoke ferociously. I'm from the Ghost Cultivator sect. Yi Xian frowned slightly. I've never heard of it. The black-robed man was stunned, and then he spoke angrily. You've actually never heard of the Ghost Cultivator sect? Yi Xian suddenly said, my younger sister is Invincible Tianming, my older brother is Defeat Swordsman, and my father is Madman Yang. Have you heard of them? The black-robed man was stunned, and then he said, what the hell? Yi Xian spoke furiously, you've actually never heard of them. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve, and a strand of sword light slapped against the black-robed man's soul. A shrill and miserable cry suddenly resounded. A short while later, the black-robed man glared angrily at Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. Do you dare to ask me to call for help? Do you? Do you dare? Huh? Do you dare? Yi Xian blinked, and then he opened his palm and a chair appeared before him. He sat on the chair with one leg crossed over the other, and then he smiled. Come, call out the strongest member of your Ghost Cultivator sect. I'm invincible, and your Ghost Cultivator sect can do as you please. P.S. Asking for votes. Chapter 1995. The black-robed man was first stunned when he heard Yi Xian, and then his expression gradually became solemn. He didn't underestimate Yi Xian at all, because he couldn't even fight back against Yi Xian, so how could he dare underestimate Yi Xian? However, he had no other choice but to call for reinforcements. If he didn't, then he would definitely die, but if he did, then he might have a chance at survival. This young man can't be at the inaction realm, right? When he thought up to this point, the black-robed man opened his palm. A black talisman suddenly floated up into the air, and then it transformed into a ray of black light that vanished from the hall. The black-robed man gazed at Yi Xian. Sir, my Ghost Cultivation sect has 3 half-step inaction realm experts. Half-step inaction realm experts. Yi Xian smiled. It's fine. The black-robed man's face fell when he heard this. A short moment later, an old man appeared within the hall. The old man wore a red robe, and he seemed very coquettish. After the red-robed old man appeared within the hall, he sized up Yi Xian, and then he spoke in a hoarse voice. May I know who you are? Yi Xian opened his palm, and a ray of light suddenly flew out. Hiss! The red-robed old man didn't even have time to react before the ray of light pierced through his forehead. His soul was obliterated. The black-robed man behind the red-robed old man was stunned by this scene. After all, the red-robed old man was at the half-step inaction realm. He was instantly killed just like that. Could he really be at the inaction realm? The black-robed man's body started to tremble when he thought up to this point. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Come on, continue calling for reinforcements. The black-robed man spoke with a trembling voice. Sir, please show mercy. At this moment, he'd completely sobered up. The man before him wasn't someone the Ghost Cultivation sect could afford to offend. Yi Xian shook his head. How boring. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve. Bang! The black-robed man was instantly annihilated. Yi Xian turned around and left. Not long after he walked out of the hall, a ray of light suddenly descended in front of him. It was An Lianyan. An Lianyan glanced at the hall and then looked at Yi Xian without saying anything. Yi Xian smiled. He's dead. And Lianyan asked, you killed him? Yi Xian nodded. After a moment of silence, and Lianyan nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. She turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Yi Xian looked at the sky and shook his head with a smile. This chick has quite a character. At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Seeing who it was, Yi Xian was stunned. An acquaintance. Dao Ling. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Why? Don't you recognize me? Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling smiled. Let's go, I'll bring you somewhere. With that, she disappeared with Yi Xian. A moment later, Yi Xian followed Dao Ling to the depths of a mountain range. In the depths of this mountain range, there was a very large palace. The palace occupied a mountain peak, and white light streaked across from time to time above the palace. Dao Ling brought Yi Xian to the front of a hall. Dao Ling smiled. This is a force I created. It's called Dao Ling Palace. From now on, you'll be a member of Dao Ling Palace. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling opened her palm, and a storage ring appeared in front of Yi Xian. In the storage ring, there's a special crystal called Infinite God Crystal. It can be used for healing and cultivation. It's a special crystal exclusive to Inaction Realm experts. I don't have many, so I'll give you 10,000 first. Use it sparingly. Yi Xian didn't stand on ceremony and put away the storage ring. Once he reached the Inaction Realm, he realized that the God Vein crystals he had were too useless. Dao Ling took out an ancient book and handed it to Yi Xian. This is the information about the major forces. There's also detailed information about those Inaction Realm experts. You can take a look. With that, she pointed to a small hall not far to the right. That's where you live. Rest for a few days. After a few days, I'll need your help. Having said that, she had already disappeared. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. This sister he recognized wasn't polite at all. Without thinking too much, he picked up the ancient book and went to his small hall. After entering the small hall, Yi Xian opened the ancient book. As soon as he opened it, it turned into a white light and sank into his brow. At the same time, countless information surged into his mind. Alternate world. This alternate world was a mysterious world. It should be said that it was a relic in itself. A very, very ancient relic. And the first person to discover it was Mu Shen. He was the first known person to reach Inaction Realm, and he was also known as the strongest expert in the alternate world. He was ranked first in terms of strength. In this alternate world, there were 3 super forces. One of them was Dao Ling Palace. Aside from Dao Ling Palace, there was also Mind Pavilion and the mysterious 10,000 Dao sect. These 3 super forces all had Inaction Realm experts behind them. Before he and Yan Bianshan came, there were only 9 Inaction Realm experts in the entire alternate world. But not long ago, one of them suddenly died. Now, there were only 8 Inaction Realm experts left in the alternate world. Of course, there were only 10 now because he and Yan Bianshan had come. There were battles in the alternate world, but Inaction Realm experts rarely fought. Thus, although there were many conflicts between the 3 super forces, there were very few real battles. A moment later, Yi Xian opened his eyes and softly said, Mu Shen. Mu Shen's origin was very mysterious. No one knew where he came from. They only knew that he was the first to discover this alternate world and the Infinite God Crystal. After he came to the alternate world, he did not occupy it. Thus, more and more people came to the alternate world. Now, no one knew where Mu Shen had gone. A moment later, Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts. He opened his palm and the mysterious green sword appeared in his hand. After reaching the Inaction Realm, he felt that the mysterious green sword was different. Just as Dao Ling had said, the mysterious green sword had other functions. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian directly entered the Xiao Ta. Inside the Xiao Ta, Yi Xian looked at the mysterious green sword in his hand. A moment later, the mysterious green sword suddenly turned into a ray of sword light and entered his brow. Boom! As the mysterious green sword entered his brow, his aura instantly increased like crazy. At this moment, an illusory sword appeared above his head. It was the mysterious green sword. Sword and person fused. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. He could now fuse with the mysterious green sword. After fusing with the mysterious green sword, his strength would increase by several fold. He could not use this move before because he was weak and could not withstand the power of the mysterious green sword. But now, he could withstand the powerful strength of the mysterious green sword. In fact, he realized that the mysterious green sword was a huge treasure trove. However, he had to slowly dig it out himself. After studying for a few days, he did not discover anything new. Yi Xian stopped studying and went to Shuang. Shuang was like Yan Peishan before. He had no aura and had already entered meditation. Seeing this, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. It was only a matter of time before Shuang reached the inaction realm. 3 days later, Dao Ling came to Yi Xian's room. Yi Xian left the Shao Ta. Dao Ling sized up Yi Xian and smiled. How do you feel after reaching the inaction realm? Yi Xian smiled. Invincible. Dao Ling laughed. You little guy. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Sister Ling, what kind of person is Mu Shen? Dao Ling smiled. Curious about him? Yi Xian nodded. Dao Ling shook her head. I've never seen him either. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. You've never seen him either? Dao Ling nodded. I've never seen him. He's a legend in the eyes of us inaction realm experts. Yi Xian fell silent. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Do you know what we've been doing every day after reaching the inaction realm? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Dao Ling smiled. We're thinking about how to improve further. Yi Xian asked, what's above the inaction realm? Dao Ling shook her head. I don't know. In our opinion, Mu Shen is the most likely person to break through to the inaction realm. However, no one knows where he is now. Speaking of this, she changed the topic. What about your sister? Yi Xian was slightly struck dumb. Then he said with a smile, which sister? Dao Ling glared at Yi Xian. Are you playing dumb with me? Yi Xian felt helpless. To be honest, I have quite a lot of sisters. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian. The one who's the best at fighting. Yi Xian was speechless. Dao Ling said, when she helped you kill Qi Di's clone, she used his clone to kill Qi Di's main body. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Is it that Qi Di who suddenly fell not long ago? Dao Ling nodded. That's him. His clone went to the Dao boundary to target you. However, his clone didn't come back. Not only did it not come back, but his main body was also killed by a sword. Qing-er. Yi Xian was silent for a moment. Qing-er. Amazing, killing the clone and destroying the main body. That was an inaction realm expert. Could it be played like this? Dao Ling smiled. Looks like you don't know much about her strength. Yi Xian nodded honestly. Qing-er's strength was really unknown. To put it simply, don't ask how strong Qing-er was. Ask if she was invincible. Dao Ling said in a low voice, so you don't know where she is? Yi Xian nodded. Dao Ling was silent. Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling, what do you want to do? Dao Ling smiled. I want to see her. If she's willing to give me some pointers or give me a direction, then I can save many years of hard work. Yi Xian was helpless. I really don't know where she is. Dao Ling nodded. I believe you. There are 2 things I need your help with. First, I want to bring Bao Shan to a place. After we leave, you'll be in charge here. We'll be recruiting soon, and you need to be in charge of it. I'll come back to pick you up in about half a month. Yi Xian was curious. Where are you going? Dao Ling smiled. A mysterious place. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Then he said, shall I recruit people? Dao Ling blinked. Is there a problem? Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, no problem. Dao Ling nodded. Also, I've already destroyed the ghost cultivator sect. She looked at Yi Xian. Try not to attack in the future. Understand? Yi Xian didn't understand. Why? Dao Ling rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Brother, you're in the nothingness realm now. You're one of the most powerful people in the world. If you make a move, you'll be bullying the weak. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1996. Bullying the weak. Yi Xian's expression became somewhat strange. There was actually a day when he would bully the weak. This feeling was really strange. A moment later, Dao Ling left with Yan Bianshan. Now, Yi Xian was in charge of Dao Ling country. Yi Xian arrived at a large hall. This was the main hall of Dao Ling Palace. All the elders of Dao Ling Palace had gathered in the hall. When they saw Yi Xian enter, all the elders' gazes fell on him. Yi Xian glanced at them. Sister Ling told me that I will be in charge of everything in Dao Ling Palace from now on. Everyone looked at him and did not speak. Yi Xian said with a smile, can anyone tell me about this recruitment? At this moment, a black-robed old man stood out and bowed slightly. Elder Yi, this recruitment is actually to snatch people. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Snatch people? The black-robed old man nodded. Because every 10 years, Dao Ling Palace, Mind Pavilion, and Myriad Dao sect will recruit people at the same time. Our target is those who have forced their way up from the world below. These people are definitely the best in their world if they are able to come up from the world below. However, there are very few who can come up. Because of this, every recruitment has to rely on snatching people. Yi Xian asked. Can they fight? The black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian. It depends. Yi Xian thought about it and said, I understand. As he spoke, he looked at the black-robed old man. What's your name? The black-robed old man said, Li Jing. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Elder Li Jing, did Sister Ling tell you about me? Li Jing hesitated for a moment and said, no. The palace lord only said that we should listen to your orders and that seeing you is like seeing her. She didn't say anything else. Yi Xian smiled. I understand. Li Jing said, Elder Yi, if there are no other questions, then we can set off for Thousand Seal Mountain. Yi Xian nodded and stood up. Let's go. A moment later, Yi Xian left the Daoling Palace with more than 10 elders. Wanfeng Mountain. Thousand Seal Mountain was a special place. Every year, people from the next world would appear here. This was because this was the only passageway opened by the other world to the world below. If he wanted to come up, he had to pass through here. Unless you've reached the inaction realm. For example, Yi Xian and Yan Bianshan, when the two of them came up, they directly tore through time and space to come up. Under Li Jing's lead, Yi Xian and the others came to the top of a mountain. Looking down from the top of the mountain, they could see all the small mountains. At this moment, a group of people had already gathered on the mountain peak. Li Jing looked to the right. There were more than 10 people standing there, and the one in the lead was an old man. The old man had white hair, and his gaze was piercing. He exuded an oppressive aura. Half-step empty realm. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, the 10,000 Dao sect's Wan Xinghan is an old fellow with a very bad temper. Elder Yi, you have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Okay. With that, he looked to the other side. There were more than a dozen people there, and the one in the lead was a woman. He knew this woman. It was in Lianyan. As if sensing Yi Xian's gaze, and Lianyan also looked at him, but she quickly withdrew her gaze. Beside Yi Xian, Li Jing said in a deep voice, "This is Misson. She is known as the #1 swordsman in the other world below the inaction realm. She is also the young sect master of the Fang Inch sect. Her father, An Beishan, is an inaction realm expert. Of course, aside from her father, she herself is extremely strong and cannot be underestimated." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked down at the mountains. "Tell me about the recruitment process." Li Jing said, "If there is someone you value, Elder Yi can offer some tempting conditions for them to join us." Yi Xian smiled. "So, not only are we picking people, but they are also picking us, right?" Li Jing nodded. "Anyone who can come up here has the capital." Yi Xian nodded slightly. The cultivation below was much more difficult than here, and those who could come up here were definitely the best of the best. Just at this moment, the space not far away from them suddenly trembled. At this moment, Wan Xinghan from the 10,000 Dao sect suddenly said, "Since the people from the Dao Spirit Palace have arrived, then let's open the passage." With that, he looked at An Lianyan in the distance. "Misson, is there any problem?" An Lianyan shook her head. "No." Wan Xinghan nodded slightly. "Then let's begin." He didn't ask Yi Xian. He directly ignored Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Li Jing. "Are we not on good terms with the 10,000 Dao sect?" Li Jing nodded. "There is indeed a bit of discord. Because last time, we robbed them, and it wasn't 1, but 5. Last time, they only managed to find 2, which was the lowest number they've ever found." Yi Xian smiled. "I understand." With that, he got up and walked toward An Lianyan. Seeing this, everyone was startled. What was this guy going to do? Yi Xian arrived before An Lianyan and smiled. "Misson, we meet again." An Lianyan looked at Yi Xian. "Are you from the Dao Spirit Palace?" Yi Xian nodded. "The palace master of the Dao Spirit Palace is my big sister." An Lianyan was about to speak, but at this moment, Wan Xinghan sneered. "So you relied on your relationship." With that, he looked at Li Jing not far away. "Li Jing, this old man really feels bad for you. You are a half-step indestructible realm expert, but you have to submit to a brat. It's really not worth it. You might as well come to my 10,000 Dao sect. At the very least, you won't be buried." Li Jing faintly smiled. "Old man Wan, is there any point in trying to sow discord?" Wan Xinghan smiled and didn't speak anymore. Yi Xian didn't care about Wan Xinghan. He directly moved his chair to An Lianyan's side and sat down. His action stunned everyone present. What was going on? Li Jing and the other experts of the Dao Spirit Palace were also stunned. What was he going to do? An Lianyan looked at Yi Xian. "What are you doing?" Yi Xian smiled. "Nothing, I just want to chat with Misson." An Lianyan, at this moment, an elder of the Fang Cun sect beside An Lianyan said, "Sir, you are from the Dao Spirit Palace. Your territory is over there." With that, he pointed in the direction of Li Jing and the others. Yi Xian smiled. "Misson and I are friends." The elder of the Fang Cun sect looked at An Lianyan. An Lianyan was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Misson, I have a sword here. Take a look." As he spoke, he withdrew the green profound sword and passed it to An Lianyan. An Lianyan's pupils constricted when she saw the green profound sword. What sword is this?" Yi Xian smiled. "This sword is called the green profound sword, and it's my sword." An Lianyan gazed at Yi Xian. "You're a swordsman?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." An Lianyan hesitated for a moment and said, "Can I take a closer look at it?" Yi Xian smiled. "Of course." An Lianyan nodded slightly. "Thank you." As she spoke, she picked up the green profound sword, and her expression gradually grew more and more solemn. Obviously, she'd sensed how extraordinary the green profound sword was. Wan Xinghan glanced coldly at Yi Xian with a hostile expression. A short moment later, and Lianyan gazed at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn expression. Young Master Yi, who forged this sword? Yi Xian smiled, my younger sister. And Lianyan was slightly stunned, your younger sister? Yi Xian nodded, yes. And Lianyan glanced at Yi Xian, this sword is very special, and there's probably no sword in the entire alternate world that can compare to it. Yi Xian smiled, Lianyan, I still have some sword techniques. Why don't we discuss the sword Dao by ourselves once this round is over? And Lianyan hesitated for a moment before she said, all right. The elder of the core sect frowned when he heard An Lianyan, and then he glanced at Yi Xian with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. Damn it. What's this young man trying to do? Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Lianyan, how many geniuses are coming this time? And Lianyan glanced at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, just call me Missin. Yi Xian nodded, all right, Lianyan. And Lianyan's expression froze when she heard this. The elder of the core sect by An Lianyan's side was dumbstruck. What the fuck? Is he really that shameless? He already told you to call her Missin. You even called her Lianyan. Damn it. Are we very close? Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Lianyan, how many geniuses are coming this time? And Lianyan glanced at Yi Xian, 20. Yi Xian nodded, all right. Your core sect will get 10, and my Dao Ling Palace will get 10. Perfect. And Lianyan was speechless. Meanwhile, Wan Xinghan suddenly roared with laughter, how laughable. What? Does your Dao Ling Palace want my Myriad Dao Palace to not get a single person this time? Yi Xian glanced at Wan Xinghan and smiled, do you have any questions? Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian, no questions, absolutely no questions. Your name is Yi Xian, right? Good, I'll watch and see how you will make it so my 10,000 Dao sect doesn't get a single one. Yi Xian smiled. How about this? We'll let Missin first, and after she gets 10, we'll start. What do you think? Hearing this, Wan Xinghan frowned. And Lianyan looked at Yi Xian, and there was a flash of surprise in her eyes. The elder of the core sect was also startled. He didn't expect Yi Xian to suggest letting the core sect collect first. Wasn't this letting the core sect get a bargain for nothing? If the Dao Ling Palace and the 10,000 Dao sect didn't fight for the first 10, then the core sect would be getting a bargain for nothing. The old man looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, he suddenly found that Yi Xian was a bit more pleasing to the eye. Across from Yi Xian, Wan Xinghan's expression was extremely ugly. If he agreed, wouldn't he be letting the core sect get a bargain? If he didn't agree, wouldn't he be offending the core sect? Thinking about this, Wan Xinghan's eyes narrowed. Only now did he realize that he had been tricked by this bastard. Wan Xinghan seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled. Young Master Yi, can I ask you a question? Yi Xian was about to speak when Wan Xinghan suddenly said, are you here to recruit people or pick up girls? Everyone. P.S. Who does everyone want to see more of? I'm about to write an article about the Milky Way galaxy. Chapter 1997. Was he here to recruit people or to pick up girls? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere instantly became strange. And Lianyan's expression became a little strange. Li Jing and the others at the side also looked a little strange. They actually didn't know anything about Yi Xian, but because of Dao Ling, they still respected Yi Xian. Because they believed in Dao Ling. But they didn't expect that Yi Xian would directly give 10 geniuses to the square-inch sect. If they gave 10 spots to the Fang Ciyuan sect, that meant the Dao Spirit Palace would have to fight the 10,000 Dao sect for the other 10 spots. In other words, Dao Ling Palace might end up with only 5 geniuses, or even fewer. As Wan Xinghan had said, was this guy here to recruit people, or to pick up girls? Just at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. I'm willing to give 10 spots to Lady Lian Yun. As for whether your 10,000 Dao sect gives up, that's your own business. Wan Xinghan's eyes narrowed when he heard Yi Xian's words, and a cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Yi Xian had kicked the ball back to him. If he didn't give in, he would offend the Fang Cun sect. If he gave in, it would mean that the 10,000 Dao sect would have to compete with the Dao Ling Palace for the 10 spots. What to do? Wan Xinghan suddenly fell into a dilemma. Beside Yi Xian, and Lianyan said solemnly, if you do this, how are you going to explain to your sister, Palace Lord Dao Ling? Yi Xian smiled and said, are you worried about me? And Lianyan's expression froze. Right at this moment, the space in the distant horizon suddenly split apart, and then a man walked in. As soon as the man appeared, everyone's gazes descended onto him. The peak of the Daoless realm. Moreover, his aura was thick and vigorous. It was obvious that there was nothing fake about it. Most importantly, this person was not old. In other words, he had a bright future ahead of him. In an instant, the expressions of everyone here burned with desire. Including Li Jing and the others behind Yi Xian. What was the most important thing in this alternate world? An inaction realm elite. Apart from inaction realm? Of course, they were monsters and geniuses. Simply put, they were talented people. If a superpower wanted to prosper for a long time to come, it needed new blood. After the man appeared, he glanced at the surroundings with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. Meanwhile, an old man appeared in front of him, and the old man spoke a few words in a low voice. A short moment later, the old man gazed at Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian looked at Lianyan and said with a smile, are you still not going to accept it? And Lianyan hesitated for a moment, and then she turned to look at the old man by her side. Uncle An. Uncle An glanced at Yi Xian, and then he appeared in front of the man and started talking with him in a low voice. Wan Xinghan was about to make a move when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, Uncle An suddenly gazed at Wan Xinghan, and he just gazed at Wan Xinghan without saying anything. Wan Xinghan's expression immediately turned ugly. The other party's intentions were clear. The Dao Ling Palace had already given them face. If the Myriad Dao Palace did not give them face, then they would become enemies. Wan Xinghan was hesitant. Meanwhile, an old man by his side spoke in a low voice, Grand Elder, the Dao Ling Palace intends to rope in the core sect. Wan Xinghan glanced at Yi Xian, and his gaze grew even colder. In the end, he didn't choose to seize the man. Thus, the core sect accepted the man without any problems. After he accepted the man, Uncle An instantly revealed a brilliant smile, and then he cupped his fists to Yi Xian and Wan Xinghan, thank you. Thank you. Yi Xian grinned, we're all on the same side. There's no need to be so polite. Uncle An glanced at Yi Xian. Even though he still had a smile on his face, there was a trace of vigilance in his heart. This fellow might be targeting Lianyan. On the other side, Wan Xinghan's expression was unsightly to the extreme. He'd been staring at Yi Xian since the beginning, and his gaze was like a sword that seemed like it intended to crush Yi Xian into pieces. But Yi Xian didn't even pay attention to him. At this moment, Li Jing, who stood beside Yi Xian, spoke in a low voice, Elder Yi. Are you really going to let 10 people go to the core sect? Yi Xian nodded. Li Jing smiled bitterly, Elder Yi, these people are related to the future strength of our Dao Ling Palace. Yi Xian smiled, if anything happens, I'll bear it. Li Jing wanted to say something, but he stopped. At this moment, an old man behind him spoke in a low voice, Elder Yi, I'm afraid you can't bear it. Yi Xian looked at the old man, do you have a problem? The old man spoke in a low voice, Elder Yi, these people are true geniuses. As long as they have enough resources, they might be able to reach the half-step inaction realm in the future. If an inaction realm expert doesn't act, the half-step inaction realm expert can decide the fate of a force. If you let 10 people go, it means that we might have a few less half-step inaction realm experts than others in the future. This is a huge loss for our Dao Ling Palace. As he spoke, he cupped his fists, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Elder Yi. I'm just stating the facts. Yi Xian nodded and smiled. What's your name, elder? The old man glanced at Yi Xian and Mo Shan. Yi Xian smiled. Elder Mo Shan, do you believe in Sister Ling? Mo Shan said in a low voice, of course. Yi Xian smiled slightly. She believes in me. Mo Shan was slightly stunned, and then he cupped his fists. I understand. Yi Xian nodded, and then he looked towards the distant horizon. The spacetime there split again, and in the next moment, another person walked out. When Uncle An from the core sect saw this, he hurriedly rushed over. Wan Xinghan's expression grew even more unsightly when he saw this scene. Yi Xian smiled but didn't speak. Soon, Uncle An successfully accepted that person. Next, more monstrous geniuses appeared, and it had to be said that they were all very outstanding. The weakest among them was at the Taoist realm. These people's Taoist realm were the kind that didn't have the slightest bit of exaggeration. To the three factions, they were the best seedlings. As long as they were given enough cultivation resources, they could create surprises for you. Seeing those monstrous geniuses accepted by the core sect made the eyes of the people from the 10,000 Dao sect and Dao Ling Palace go red. Yi Xian, who was in the lead, had a very calm expression. Every time the core sect accepted someone, he would get up and congratulate them. His smile was very sincere, as if he was a part of the core sect. Wan Xinghan's expression returned to normal. Not only that, but he also congratulated the core sect like Yi Xian. Just like this, it didn't take long for the core sect to accept 10 super geniuses. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly became tense. Because everyone knew that the show was about to begin. At this moment, another man walked out from the distant horizon. Another super genius. Just like before, he was also at the Taoist realm. Uncle N's eyes narrowed slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, An Lianyun suddenly said, Enough. Enough. Uncle An hesitated for a moment and then smiled bitterly. I understand. He knew that the core sect had profited greatly. If they continued to be greedy, then something bad might happen. The 10,000 Dao sect and Dao Ling Palace weren't idiots. In the distance, Wan Xinghan suddenly appeared before the man and smiled. I'm an elder of the 10,000 Dao sect. Are you willing to join my 10,000 Dao sect? The man was about to speak. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly flicked his finger, and a storage ring fell in front of the man. Yi Xian smiled and said, This is just a small token of my appreciation. The man took a look and his expression changed in the next second. There were 1 billion God Supreme crystals in the storage ring. 1 billion. Even though the Divine Supreme Crystal was no longer useful to Limitless Realm cultivators, it was still very useful to those below Limitless Realm. A wisp of disdain appeared on the corner of Wan Xinghan's mouth. Are you going to compete in money? He waved his hand, and a storage ring appeared before the man. There were 2 billion God-grade crystals within the storage ring. The Myriad Dao Palace had very few infinite God-grade crystals, but they didn't need too many God-grade crystals. Suddenly, Yi Xian smiled, and then a ray of white light entered the center of the man's forehead. Bang! The man's body trembled slightly. A moment later, he suddenly opened his eyes, and his body was trembling. Wan Xinghan frowned slightly, and he was about to say something when the man walked over to Yi Xian and bowed deeply. I'm willing to join your sect. Everyone was stunned. What did Yi Xian give him? Yi Xian smiled. What's your name? The man replied, Guyunqing. Yi Xian nodded. Come behind me. Guyunqing hurriedly walked respectfully behind Yi Xian. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. Wan Xinghan stared at Yi Xian as if he wanted to see through Yi Xian. Everyone was puzzled. They were wondering what Yi Xian had given Guyunqing to make him choose the Dao Spirit Palace so eagerly. Yi Xian looked at them and shook his head with a smile. In truth, he knew what these Daoless realm experts were thinking. Did they care about resources? Of course they did, but they cared more about how to reach the Daoless realm. He'd given Gu Yunqing Dao Ling's Daoless realm inheritance, but he hadn't given him all of it. He'd only given him half, and that was enough. And Daoless realm inheritance. Daoless realm experts would go crazy. The 10,000 Dao sect had Daoless realm experts as well, but those Daoless realm experts would definitely not casually give away an Daoless realm inheritance. After all, Dao Ling had only given him an Yan Bianshan. Just at this moment, space in the distance split open once more, and then a black-robed man walked out. As soon as he walked out, Yi Xian pointed forward and a ray of white light entered the black-robed man's forehead. A moment later, the black-robed man's pupils shrank, and he walked directly towards Yi Xian. At this moment, Wan Xinghan quickly appeared before the black-robed man. He opened his palm and a storage ring appeared before the black-robed man. There were 3 billion extreme heaven crystals within it. Wan Xinghan looked at the black-robed man. Join my 10,000 Dao sect and all of this is yours. The black-robed man looked at Wan Xinghan like he was looking at an idiot, and then he walked directly towards Yi Xian. Wan Xinghan's expression became extremely unsightly, and then he suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. You cheated. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled. Are you a sore loser? Wan Xinghan stared fixedly at Yi Xian. I challenge you. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. I'm only at the Daoless realm. A half-step Daoless realm cultivator like you is actually challenging a Daoless realm cultivator? Do you even have any shame? To outsiders, his current cultivation was the Daoless realm because he'd concealed it. Wan Xinghan spoke coldly. Don't worry, this old man won't take advantage of you. This old man will lower his cultivation to fight you. Do you dare? Chapter 1998. Lowering one's cultivation. Hearing Wan Xinghan's words, Li Jing, who was beside Yi Xian, immediately stepped forward. He looked coldly at Wan Xinghan. Old man Wan, is your 10,000 Dao sect a sore loser? Wan Xinghan said angrily, Li Jing, shut up the old man. Your Dao Ling palace is obviously cheating. Cheating? Li Jing sneered. I think you're just a sore loser. As he spoke, he slowly clenched his right hand. Wan Xinghan wasn't willing to show weakness, and a powerful aura swept out from his body. For a time, both sides were at daggers drawn, and a battle was about to erupt. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Elder Wan, you said that my Dao Ling palace cheated. Do you have any proof? Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian. The old man doesn't need proof. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled. So you're saying that you're going to eat my Dao Ling palace? Wan Xinghan looked coldly at Yi Xian. Don't give the old man these fancy tricks. The old man won't fall for it. On the other side, Uncle An glanced at Yi Xian, and then he said, Lianyun, this little fellow is really showy. Moreover, he's approaching you on purpose, so he definitely has ulterior motives. You have to be careful. And Lianyun, in the distance, Wan Xinghan said, Elder Yi, let's not talk about anything else. The old man has lowered his cultivation to challenge you. Do you dare to accept? Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Jing said, I accept. Wan Xinghan glanced at Yi Xian. How about this? The old man will lower his cultivation to the soulless realm, which is one realm lower than yours. Do you dare? Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Jing quickly said, Elder Yi, you must not agree. Although this person has lowered his cultivation, his combat awareness is at the half-step indiscernible realm. Moreover, he clearly wants to kill you. If you agree. Yi Xian suddenly said loudly, Of course I can't agree. He's at the half-step indestructible realm, while I'm only at the Daoless realm. How can I agree to him? I'm not stupid. Hearing this, Li Jing's expression froze. However, he was relieved in his heart. Although this guy didn't look very reliable, his brain was still very flexible. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the distant Wan Xinghan's expression instantly turned cold. Why are you so cowardly? Yi Xian said with a straight face, you're a half-step indestructible realm expert. Aren't you embarrassed to challenge me, a Taoist realm expert? Wan Xinghan said angrily, the old man has already said that he will lower himself by 2 cultivation levels, 1 cultivation level lower than yours. Do you still not dare? Yi Xian said seriously, if you have the ability, then lower yourself to the heartless realm. Heartless state. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings became strange. These words were too shameless. Actually, dropping 2 realms was already very interesting. And lowering himself to the heartless state. That was a little too much. Right at this moment, Wan Xinghan suddenly said, the old man will lower himself to the heartless realm. Everyone looked at Wan Xinghan. This old man was obviously infuriated to the point that his mind wasn't normal. An old man from the 10,000 Dao sect hesitated for a moment before he said, Head Elder, lowering yourself to the heartless realm. That's too risky. Wan Xinghan's face was expressionless. Do you think this fellow cultivated to the Taoist realm by himself? The old man glanced at Yi Xian, and he hesitated for a moment before he said, It doesn't seem like it. This Yi Xian is so flashy. It's obvious that he's relied on external forces to reach the Taoist realm. Wan Xinghan suddenly said, Elder Yi, it's too boring to compete like this. How about we increase the stakes? Increase the stakes. Yi Xian smiled and said, What stakes? Wan Xinghan looked at Yi Xian and said, Whoever loses will withdraw from today's recruitment. What do you think? The expressions of Li Jing and the others beside Yi Xian changed greatly, and Li Jing immediately said, No. Absolutely not. In the distance, Wan Xinghan smiled and said, Elder Yi, are you the one in charge or is Elder Li Jing the one in charge? Li Jing said solemnly, Old man Wan, don't try to sow discord like this. With that, he looked at Yi Xian and said, Elder Yi, this matter concerns the future of my Daoling Palace. We can't be careless. Yi Xian was silent for a moment before he said, He has already lowered himself to the heartless realm. If I still don't agree, how will others look at me? Li Jing's expression froze. Yi Xian looked at Wan Xinghan and smiled. Elder Wan, I agree to your conditions. He agreed. The faces of Li Jing and the other cultivators of Dao Ling Palace darkened. On the other side, Uncle An shook his head. This guy is still too young. Although Wan Xinghan has a bad temper, it doesn't mean that he's brainless. Since he dares to lower himself to the heartless realm, it means that he has absolute confidence. And this little guy. With that, he shook his head again. What a rash fool. And Lianyan glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, Elder Wan, should we stop here or? Wan Xinghan said calmly, since it's a fight, there will definitely be injuries and deaths. This is normal. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded and turned to look at Li Jing and the others from Daoling Palace. Remember, if I die, Daoling Palace must not take revenge. My Daoling Palace can afford to lose. With that, he looked at Wan Xinghan. Wan Xinghan smiled faintly. Listen up, myriad Daoling Palace. If I die, you must not take revenge. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. Is that okay? Yi Xian nodded. Can we begin? Wan Xinghan opened his palm and pressed down lightly. Soon, his realm was directly suppressed to the heartless realm. Wan Xinghan glanced at everyone present. Everyone, I didn't bully him. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. Let's begin. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the cyan profound sword appeared in his hand. He looked at Wan Xinghan. I'm going to attack. A wisp of killing intent flashed in Wan Xinghan's eyes. Come. He had already planned that as long as Yi Xian attacked, he would directly kill Yi Xian in one strike. He had been very unhappy with this flashy fellow in front of him for a very long time. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Elder Wan, this sword of mine is very powerful. You must be careful. Wan Xinghan said angrily, why do you have so much nonsense? You. At this moment, Wan Xinghan's voice stopped abruptly because a sword had pierced through his head. Everyone was stunned. What's going on? In next to no time, they looked at Yi Xian's right hand. At this moment, the sword in his right hand had vanished. Yi Xian had killed it. Everyone in the surroundings was petrified when they witnessed this scene. This young man instantly killed Wan Xinghan? Wan Xinghan was stunned as well. Because he hadn't even been able to react before a sword had pierced through his head. What's going on? Suddenly, An Lianyun stood up slowly, and she gazed at Yi Xian, the Heartless Realm. Her voice was trembling slightly. The Heartless Realm. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone here was petrified on the spot. The Heartless Realm? All of them gazed at Yi Xian. This young man is at the Heartless Realm? At this moment, they seemed as if they'd been struck by lightning, and their minds were blank. At this moment, the experts of Dao's Spirit Palace had astounded expressions on their faces as well. The Heartless Realm. Elder Yi is actually an Heartless Realm expert? Meanwhile, An Lianyun suddenly said, "You're at the Heartless Realm, right?" Yi Xian gazed at An Lianyun and smiled, "Yes." The Heartless Realm. The air here suddenly froze when they heard Yi Xian admit it. An Heartless Realm expert. That's a top existence in another world. Who is this Yi Xian? When did another Heartless Realm expert appear in another world? Moreover, he's so young. Everyone's minds were filled with questions. Meanwhile, Wan Xinghan's voice suddenly trembled. You're at the Heartless Realm, then why did you ask me to lower my cultivation? You really aren't human." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely. He was instantly wiped out. Everyone here had extremely strange expressions on their faces. This fellow is at the Heartless Realm, yet he asked a half-step Heartless Realm expert to lower his cultivation. He really isn't human at all. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. He gazed at the experts of the Myriad Dao Palace, and their expressions changed drastically. Yi Xian smiled, "All of you saw it. It was your elder one who challenged me. Moreover, he said that the Myriad Dao sect can't take revenge. Are all of you alright with that?" The experts of the Myriad Dao sect didn't dare to speak. This was an Heartless Realm expert, and he wasn't someone they could resist. Yi Xian smiled, "Since there's no problem, then continue recruiting." After he finished speaking, he waved his sleeve and the space in the distance split open. A moment later, another genius walked out. Yi Xian looked at Li Jing, and Li Jing quickly went over to recruit more geniuses. The expressions of the experts of the Myriad Dao Palace were extremely unsightly. They didn't dare to say anything, and they didn't dare to recruit more geniuses. In the distance, Uncle An said solemnly, "This youth isn't bad. Lianyun, you have to befriend him." And Lianyun turned to look at Uncle An. It didn't take long for the Dao Spirit Palace to recruit all the remaining geniuses. Li Jing and the others were beaming with joy. Moreover, they felt even more respect for Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at An Lianyun and smiled, "Lianyun, the recruitment is over. I'll pay you a visit another day." And Lianyun nodded slightly. "Okay." Yi Xian smiled and was about to leave with the experts of the Dao Spirit Palace. However, at this moment, an invisible pressure suddenly appeared in the sky. The next moment, the sky split open and a middle-aged man walked out. The expressions of the experts of the Myriad Dao sect relaxed when they saw this person. The person before them was the sect master of the Myriad Dao sect, Wan Daoming. With Wan Daoming's appearance, the atmosphere became tense once more. Next to him, Uncle An glanced at Yi Xian. Then he said, "This is getting complicated." And Lianyun looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. After Wan Daoming appeared, his gaze fell on Yi Xian. "I didn't expect another Heartless Realm expert to appear in the Dao Spirit Palace." Beside Yi Xian, Li Jing said, "The Myriad Dao sect master, Wan Daoming." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked at Wan Daoming and smiled. Sect Master Wan, all of this is the will of my big sister, Dao Ling. If Sect Master Wan is dissatisfied, you can go find my big sister, Dao Ling. You coming to me is a bit like bullying the weak. Everyone, Wan Daoming looked at Yi Xian. You killed the head elder of my myriad Dao sect. Isn't that bullying the weak? Yi Xian smiled and said, he was the one who challenged me first. It was his own idea to lower himself to the heartless state. I never said that I wanted to fight him one-on-one. He was the one who kept looking for me to fight one-on-one. Everyone can testify to that. Everyone, too shameless. Someone spoke abruptly in the surroundings. P.S. Ask for a ticket. Give me one. Chapter 1999. How shameless. Needless to say, everyone here was shocked. This is an inaction realm expert. How could he be so shameless? Wan Daoming gazed at Yi Xian and was speechless. How did this fellow attain the inaction realm? Why doesn't he have the demeanor of an inaction realm expert at all? At this moment, Yi Xian left with the others. Wan Daoming suddenly said, Elder Yi. Yi Xian stopped moving and turned around to look at Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming smiled, how about we spar? A spar. The expressions of the experts from the 10,000 Dao sect and Dao Ling Palace changed drastically. After all, while there had always been friction between the three great powers, it hadn't risen to the point where inaction realm experts would fight. Yet now, Wan Daoming had challenged Yi Xian. This meant that they might fight to the death. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Would Yi Xian accept it? Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian smiled and said, then let's have a spar. Actually, he wanted to witness the combat strength of an inaction realm expert after he attained the inaction realm. Wan Daoming nodded slightly, opened his palm, and then swept it lightly. In an instant, the space before him and Yi Xian started to change, and it didn't take long for both Yi Xian and Wan Daoming to enter a mysterious expanse of space. Both of them were at the inaction realm, so if they fought in another world, it would collapse. Wan Daoming gazed at Yi Xian. I haven't seen an inaction realm swordsman. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his right hand. In the next moment, his right hand started burning, and it instantly transformed into a flaming arm. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his grasp. A moment later, the sword suddenly vanished. Hiss! A ray of sword energy instantly slashed down towards Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming raised his arm to block it. Bang! A ray of sword energy and flames erupted at the same time. A moment later, a fist smashed down towards the center of Yi Xian's forehead, and its powerful force shattered the space around Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's body became illusory. Boom! This punch missed, and Yi Xian himself had already retreated thousands of feet away. Wan Daoming raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Just as he raised his head, a sword light suddenly slashed down. Wan Daoming narrowed his eyes and raised his hand to block. Bang! Wan Daoming was pushed back thousands of feet by this sword, but before he could stop, another sword light slashed down. A strand of a cold light flashed in Wan Daoming's eyes. His right hand suddenly grabbed forward, and this grab directly grabbed onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. But in the next moment, his expression instantly changed, and he hurriedly let go. But it was still a bit too late, and half of his palm was directly sliced off. Meanwhile, the azure sword had returned to Yi Xian's hand. Wan Daoming looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. Good sword. Yi Xian smiled and said, your flame is also not bad. Earlier, the green profound sword had slashed the flame numerous times in succession, but the flame had only dimmed slightly, and its intelligence hadn't been destroyed by the green profound sword. Wan Daoming glanced at Yi Xian. Take another punch of mine. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward. In the next moment, he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian from afar. Bang! As he punched out, the flames on his arms suddenly transformed into a fist mark that shot out. Wherever the flaming fist mark passed, space-time collapsed inch by inch. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm. He issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Meanwhile, the flaming fist smashed down. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, the sword shield forcefully blocked the flaming fist. However, the space around Yi Xian and the sword shield started to gradually vanish and be obliterated at this moment. Right? Wan Daoming took a deep glance at the sword shield in front of Yi Xian. He'd never imagined that this sword could actually take form. Most importantly, this sword shield was actually so strong. Abnormal. Wan Daoming opened his palm, and the flame returned to his hand once more. However, at this moment, the flame had dimmed a little. Yi Xian's sword was able to injure the spirit of his flame. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. "Come, take this." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, he appeared directly above Wan Daoming's head, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Drawing the sword to determine life and death. Drawing the sword with all his strength to determine life and death. At this moment, even he himself didn't know how many times he'd overlapped. At the instant that Yi Xian drew his sword, the space where he and Wan Daoming were directly turned pitch black. In the next moment, that space boiled, and strands of powerful energy continuously spread in all directions. The expressions of Li Jing and the others changed greatly, and they all retreated explosively. And Lianyan stared fixedly at the pitch-black space, and no one knew what she was thinking. After a long time, Yi Xian and Wan Daoming appeared before everyone. At this moment, one of Wan Daoming's arms was gone. Not only that, but his entire body was covered in sword wounds. The flame in his hand was only a small flame left, and it was on the verge of death. However, Yi Xian was completely fine. Had Wan Daoming lost? Everyone looked at Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming said softly, "This sword of yours is amazing." The implication was that he wasn't willing to accept his defeat. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Sect Master Wan, let's end today's spar here." In truth, he only had the upper hand earlier. If he wanted to kill Wan Daoming, he would have to fuse with the green profound sword and reach the state of one with the sword. Only then would he have a chance to kill Wan Daoming. That was his trump card, and he wouldn't expose it if he could. Wan Daoming looked at Yi Xian. The Dao Spirit Palace is filled with talents. With that, he disappeared with the powerful cultivators of the 10,000 Dao sect. Yi Xian looked at Lianyan in the distance. "Miss Lianyan, we'll meet again." And Lianyan nodded slightly. "I'll visit another day." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Anytime." With that, he disappeared with the powerful cultivators of the Dao Spirit Palace. After Yi Xian and the others had left, Uncle An, who was standing next to Lianyan, said softly, "I didn't expect another super strong person to appear in the Daoling Palace. And he's a sword cultivator. A swordsman." There was only one swordsman in the boundless realm, and that was Yi Xian. In truth, Lianyan was the most likely to become the first boundless swordsman because the entire Fang Cun sect was doing its best to nurture her. To nurture an boundless realm cultivator required the entire sect's strength. In truth, they were all curious about why an boundless swordsman had suddenly appeared in the Dao Spirit Palace. At this moment, Lianyan suddenly said, "Let's go." With that, she turned around and left. Soon, the powerful cultivators of the Fang Cun sect also left. After Yi Xian returned to the Dao Spirit Palace, the attitude of the people of the Dao Spirit sect towards him instantly changed. Boundless realm. That was in existence on the same level as Palace Master Aling. After Yi Xian returned to the Dao Spirit Palace, he went straight to his small hall and entered Xiaota. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes shone with excitement. He had gained a lot from the battle with Wan Daoming just now. He now had a clear understanding of his own combat power. Not only that, but he also understood the combat power of an boundless realm cultivator. In the following time, Yi Xian began to cultivate. The battle with Wan Daoming gave him a lot of enlightenment. At the same time, he also realized that he had many shortcomings. These shortcomings had to be changed. Yi Xian did not know that because of his battle with Wan Daoming, the entire alternate world was in turmoil. A new boundless realm cultivator. And a swordsman. Somewhere in the clouds. An old man suddenly appeared in the clouds. As soon as the old man appeared, a woman in a red dress came not far in front of him. The woman in the red dress looked at the old man. Mo Ku, did you investigate that person's background? Mo Ku shook his head. I only know that he came from below. The woman in the red dress frowned. Mo Ku glanced at the woman in the red dress. Hong Lian, are you worried that he has something to do with the mysterious woman who attacked back then? The woman called Hong Lian nodded. That's possible. Mo Ku frowned slightly. What do you mean? Hong Lian said, he is a swordsman, and the senior who attacked back then was also a swordsman. Most importantly, he had come from the bottom. Why was Qi Di killed back then? It was because one of his avatars went to the lower realm. If I'm not wrong, his avatars offended that big shot in the lower realm, so he was killed by that big shot. Mo Ku said, you mean that Yi Xian is that senior's man? Hong Lian nodded, yes. Mo Ku remained silent and didn't speak again. Hong Lian continued, the reason this person was able to defeat Wan Daoming was because of the sword in his hand. The sword in his hand can break Wan Daoming's spirit fire. Mo Ku's eyes narrowed, it can break it? Hong Lian nodded, rather than saying that Wan Daoming lost to him, it would be better to say that he lost to the sword in his hand. That is a super divine artifact. Mo Ku softly said, so you're saying that this guy is not only an endless swordsman, but also a super second generation? Hong Lian nodded. Mo Ku silently pondered for a moment and softly said, I understand. Hong Lian continued, that day, Dao Ling already knew who killed Qi Di. With that, she shook her head, that woman is actually related to Yi Xian. Her fate might change because of this. Mo Ku suddenly said, do you think the 10,000 Dao sect will give up? Hong Lian smiled, after suffering such a big loss, how could they give up? With that, she looked at Mo Ku, you mean that when the 10,000 Dao sect targets him, we will lend a hand and befriend him? Mo Ku smiled but didn't speak. Hong Lian gave him a thumbs up. What an old fox. Mo Ku softly said, it depends on whether or not the 10,000 Dao sect will cooperate. Hong Lian smiled, they will cooperate. Because as far as I know, Muge and Fan Tian have already headed to the 10,000 Dao sect. Mo Ku frowned, Fan Tian also went? Hong Lian nodded. Mo Ku silently pondered for a moment before saying, let's take a gamble. Anyway, we have lived enough. Take a gamble. Yi Xian was still cultivating in the small tower. At that moment, Yi Xian seemed to have sensed something. The next moment, he disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Shuang. At that moment, Shuang slowly got to her feet. The moment she got to her feet, the space and time around them started boiling. Endless realm. Su Wang looked at Yi Xian. I have reached Endless Realm. Yi Xian's mouth curved up. Good news. Chapter 2000. Inanimate Realm. Yi Xian didn't expect Su Wang to reach Inanimate Realm so quickly. This was a pleasant surprise for him. At this moment, Su Wang suddenly asked, what is above Inanimate Realm? Yi Xian thought about it and said, breaking the circle. Su Wang was slightly stunned and puzzled. Yi Xian smiled. It's very complicated. To put it simply, our inanimate realm is still within the circle. What we need to do is break the circle and create our own realm. Su Wang pondered for a moment and nodded. I understand. Yi Xian looked at Su Wang. What do you plan to do now? Su Wang looked at Yi Xian and was stunned. What plan? Yi Xian smiled. You have reached inanimate realm. If you don't want to follow me and want to go on your own, that's fine. I won't stop you. Su Wang shook his head. I'll follow you. Yi Xian smiled. Why? Su Wang looked at Yi Xian. Because you are good to me. Yi Xian smiled. You are my disciple. If I don't treat you well, who will? Su Wang looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled. The spacetime inside Xiao Ta is different from the outside world. You can cultivate here. Also, remember, you are free. If one day you want to leave, I won't stop you. With that, he turned and left Xiao Ta. Su Wang remained silent. As soon as Yi Xian left Xiao Ta, Li Jing came to his small hall. Li Jing bowed to Yi Xian. Elder Yi. Yi Xian smiled. What's the matter? Li Jing nodded. Something is wrong with the 10,000 Dao sect recently. Yi Xian frowned. Wrong? Li Jing said in a low voice. They called back their disciples who were outside. For safety reasons, I took the liberty to call back my Dao Ling Palace disciples who were outside. Now, the smell of gunpowder is very strong between us. Yi Xian said, because of me? Li Jing smiled bitterly, that's just one of the reasons. The main reason is that last year we also got a big advantage, but this year, they didn't even receive a single person. Yi Xian smiled and asked, have they made a move yet? Li Jing shook his head. Not really. Yi Xian nodded. Then let's not make a move. However, we can't be careless. Let all the disciples in the palace pay attention and don't go out if they can, in case the other party attacks us. Li Jing suddenly asked, what if the other party attacks? Yi Xian blinked. Of course we're going to F***ck him up. Li Jing nodded. Understood. Yi Xian smiled and said, I will go to the Fang Cun sect. If there is anything, just send me a message. As his voice fell, he directly flew up on his sword and disappeared at the end of the horizon in the blink of an eye. Li Jing looked up at the sword light at the end of the horizon and said softly, do young people like to pick up girls? The Fang Cun sect. The Fang Cun sect was located in the Fang Cun mountain range in the north of the alternate world. This place was also a place that countless cultivators dreamed of joining. It was good to have a big tree to enjoy the shade. In this alternate world, if a cultivator didn't want to die for no reason one day, he had to find a big tree to rely on. Hence, he needed to find a tree to rely on, and the 3 superpowers were precisely that tree. As long as you joined one of the 3 superpowers, people would give you some face when you walked outside. Even if you had a conflict with someone, they wouldn't dare to kill you because you had a superpower behind you. Every day, people came to the Fang Cun mountain range, wanting to join the Fang Cun sect. Different from the previous recruitment, these people who wanted to join the Fang Cun mountain range were all natives of the alternate world. And these people were much worse than those from the lower realm. The people from the lower realm were basically the top geniuses and monsters of their respective worlds. Moreover, they had all reached the Daoless realm. With a little training, they could reach the half-step annulled realm. But the natives of the alternate world needed to start from scratch. Training them at the beginning required a lot of energy and resources. Therefore, unless they were top geniuses or monsters, the 3 superpowers generally wouldn't accept them. As usual, there were many people gathered at the foot of the Fang Cun mountain range today. There were more than 10,000 people. Yi Xian didn't directly enter the Fang Cun sect on his sword. That was too disrespectful. He was here to make friends, not to cause trouble. Of course, he wouldn't participate in the test either. He couldn't show off in such a low-level way. It was beneath his dignity. Yi Xian walked up to an old man from the Fang Cun sect. The old man glanced at Yi Xian and said expressionlessly, go to the side and participate in the test. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm Yi Xian, a friend of Miss Lianyan. Please inform her. The old man looked up at Yi Xian and said, what did you say? Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm a friend of Lianyan. Please inform her. The old man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You're a friend of the young sect master? Yi Xian nodded. The old man suddenly flared up with rage. Why don't you say you're an inaction realm expert? Yi Xian said seriously, I really am. The old man was stunned, and then he said angrily, do you think this old man is an idiot? Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it. Why does no one believe me every time I tell the truth? What's wrong with this world? The old man glanced coldly at Yi Xian and said, stop playing with all these fancy tricks. A young man should be down to earth and take every step properly. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Little do you know that if you take too big a step, you'll easily pull your balls. Understand? Yi Xian was speechless. The old man opened his palm, and a wooden tablet appeared in front of Yi Xian. Go line up and wait for the trial. Yi Xian blinked and said, let me show you a trick. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a ray of light suddenly vanished into the sky. The old man frowned slightly. What trick are you playing? Meanwhile, a ray of light flashed in the distant sky, and then a woman and an old man appeared not too far away from Yi Xian. It was An Lianyun and Uncle An. Everyone seethed with excitement when they saw An Lianyun. She was the goddess of the square sect. Not only was she beautiful, she was kind as well, and she was the goddess in the hearts of countless men. An Lianyun hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian when she saw him, and then she said softly, why didn't you go up directly? Yi Xian smiled, I was afraid that it would be rude. Uncle An grinned when he heard Yi Xian. This young man is polite, and he's a good young man. Now, he found Yi Xian to be more and more pleasing to the eye. And Lianyun grinned as she stood before Yi Xian. How could it be rude? As she spoke, she glanced at the surroundings and said, let's go somewhere else. Yi Xian nodded, and then the two of them left. Uncle An was very sensible and didn't follow them. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly asked, Eldarin, who was that young man just now? Eldarin grinned, he's Yi Xian from Dao's Spirit Palace, the youngest inaction swordsman in this alternate world. The old man froze on the spot when he heard this, and it didn't take long for his body to start trembling. Uncle An glanced at the old man, what's wrong? The old man's face was ghastly pale. Eldarin, take good care of my family. Uncle An was speechless. Yi Xian followed An Lianyun to the back mountain of the square-inch sect. It was the season of cherry blossoms. The two of them strolled among the cherry blossoms. It was as beautiful as a painting. And Lianyun suddenly said, I didn't expect you to be in the boundless realm. Yi Xian smiled and said, when I was kidnapped by the ghost cultivator sect, why didn't you kill him directly? And Lianyun glanced at Yi Xian. I don't want anyone to die because of me. Yi Xian was silent. At this time, An Lianyun said softly, there are very few swordsmen in the alternate world. You're the only boundless swordsman. Can I ask you some questions about Sword Dao? Yi Xian laughed and said, of course. An Lianyun nodded and said, how did you attain the inaction state? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, my first wish. An Lianyun looked straight at Yi Xian. My first wish? Yi Xian nodded and smiled. To reach the inaction state, it actually depends on whether one can comprehend it or not. The key is still in oneself, and no one who has reached the inaction state can be replicated. An Lianyun was silent. Yi Xian said again, take it slow and don't rush things. An Lianyun nodded. I understand. Just at this moment, a man suddenly appeared in the distance. He wore a white robe, had long hair, and was very handsome. When the man saw Yi Xian, he was slightly startled. Then a trace of darkness flashed in the depths of his eyes, but he still had a bright smile on his face. The man casually plucked a cherry blossom and slowly walked before An Lianyun. He smiled and said, Lianyun, you're really beautiful today. An Lianyun looked at the man. Young Master Wan, what's the matter? Young Master Wan? Yi Xian looked at the man. Could this guy be from the 10,000 Dao sect? The man faintly smiled. Nothing much, I just wanted to see you. Hearing this, and Lianyan frowned slightly. Young Master Wan, I have something to do right now. Obviously, she was a bit unhappy to be disturbed by this man. Hearing An Lianyan's words, the man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Lianyan, this is? And Lianyan's expression was a bit unhappy. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked at An Lianyan and smiled. I know why you can't break through. And Lianyan looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian smiled. Because you've been wronging yourself. As he spoke, he glanced at the man and smiled. You hate him, don't you? The man's eyes narrowed slightly, and his expression was unfriendly. And Lianyan was also slightly startled. She hadn't expected Yi Xian to say this. Yi Xian continued, since you hate him, then why don't you say it? Why do you have to wrong yourself because of others? Doing this is equivalent to putting a layer of shackles on your sword heart. How can a shackled sword heart break through? Hearing this, An Lianyan was stunned. Yi Xian continued, we swordsmen should be straightforward. If we like someone, then we like him. If we don't like him, then we don't like him. Don't wrong yourself because of others. Be decisive, understand? The man in front of Yi Xian suddenly smiled sinisterly. Sir, do you think I'm invisible? You. And Lianyan suddenly raised her head and looked at the man. Scram. Scram. Hearing this, the man was stunned. And Lianyan looked at the man coldly. I'll say it one last time. Scram. The man's expression became extremely ugly. Lianyan. And Lianyan's eyes narrowed slightly. Did I ask you to call me Lianyan? As soon as she finished speaking, the sword in her hand suddenly flew out. The man's expression instantly changed, and he blocked with his right arm. Bang! The man was directly pushed back hundreds of meters. And Lianyan looked at Yi Xian. How comfortable. Yi Xian smiled. Remember, you have to look straight at your heart. If you like someone, then you like them. If you don't like them, then you don't like them. Don't wrong yourself. And Lianyan nodded. I understand. At this moment, the man in the distance suddenly shouted, Who are you? Yi Xian looked at the man and smiled. Yi Xian, if your 10,000 Dao sect isn't satisfied, then come at me for revenge. No matter how many come, I'm invincible. You can do whatever you want. Hearing this, and Lianyan couldn't help but look at Yi Xian. There was a strange light in her beautiful eyes. P.S. Asking for votes. Chapter 2001. I'm invincible, you can do whatever you want. When Yi Xian said this, he was very calm, but his voice was filled with invincible confidence. In the distance, when the man heard Yi Xian's words, his pupils shrank. You are Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Of course he had heard of him. He was the young sect master of the 10,000 Dao sect, and his father was Wan Daoming. Not long ago, his father had lost to Yi Xian. The man didn't dare to act rashly again. He bowed deeply. I didn't know it was Venerable Yi. Please forgive me for offending you. Yi Xian smiled. I thought you were going to say a few more harsh words. The man lowered his head slightly and didn't dare to speak. Harsh words? Although he was the young sect master of the 10,000 Dao sect and was usually domineering, he wasn't stupid enough to say harsh words to an inaction realm cultivator. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at An Lianyan. Let's go. And Lianyan nodded. The two of them left. Seeing Yi Xian leave, the man sighed in relief and slipped away. In the distance. And Lianyan softly said, Thank you. Yi Xian smiled. What are you thanking me for? And Lianyan looked at Yi Xian. The pointers you gave me just now. Yi Xian faintly smiled. It's still the same words. Be yourself and don't wrong yourself. And Lianyan nodded. She hesitated for a bit and said, I want to go into closed-door cultivation for a while. Yi Xian smiled. Okay. Let's talk next time. With that, he turned and left. And Lianyun looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared into the distance. After Yi Xian disappeared, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared beside An Lianyun. This person was the sect master of the Fang Inch sect, An Beishan. An Beishan looked at Yi Xian in the distance and said, What do you think of him? An Lianyun said, Very good. An Beishan didn't speak. An Lianyun looked at An Beishan. What do you think, father? An Beishan smiled. Don't let me think. You should think for yourself. An Lianyun nodded. Understood. An Beishan nodded. You must have gained a lot. Go into seclusion for a while. An Lianyun nodded. All right. With that, she turned around and left. After An Lianyun disappeared, An Beishan turned around and disappeared. On the other side, Yi Xian stopped. A middle-aged man appeared in front of him. It was An Beishan. Yi Xian smiled. What's the matter, senior? He had already guessed the other party's identity because he had sensed the other party just now. An Beishan said, Shall we talk? Yi Xian smiled and said, All right. The two of them walked into the distance. On the way, An Beishan suddenly said, You're very mysterious. Yi Xian smiled and said, I know what senior is worried about. Senior is afraid that I have some sort of ulterior motive for coming into contact with Lianyun, right? An Beishan looked at Yi Xian. You're so direct. However, I like how direct you are. Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior can rest assured that I have no ulterior motive for coming into contact with Lianyun. I can also take the initiative to promise Senior that I won't do anything to harm Lianyun. An Beishan looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian said, Although I have never been a father, I understand the heart of a father. I think Senior's worry is very normal. As I said, I have no ulterior motive for coming into contact with Misson. An Beishan silently pondered for a moment and said, I believe you. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. Be careful of the 10,000 Dao sect. Yi Xian was slightly startled and said, Do they want to kill me? An Beishan said, Your appearance made them feel a sense of crisis. They felt a sense of crisis. Not only them, but the Inch sect also felt a sense of crisis. However, we are relatively fine because we don't have much conflict with your Dao Spirit Palace. However, they do. Not only that, the resources of the entire world aren't enough. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Not enough? An Beishan nodded slightly. Yes. In short, you have to be careful. Seeing that An Beishan wasn't willing to say more, Yi Xian didn't ask more. He immediately said, Thank you for the reminder, Senior. An Beishan stopped. It's me, thank you for teaching Lianyun. Yi Xian smiled. It's a small matter. An Beishan nodded. Take care. After saying that, he disappeared. Yi Xian silently pondered for a moment and then turned to leave. However, he had only taken a few steps when the space before him suddenly distorted. The next moment, he entered an unknown and mysterious space. Not far in front of him stood a middle-aged man. It was Wan Daoming. Behind him and to his right stood two middle-aged men. Yi Xian glanced at the middle-aged man on the right. This middle-aged man wore a black robe and had his hands behind his back. He had a faint smile on his face. Danger. Among the three of them, this middle-aged man gave him a sense of danger. Sensing Yi Xian's gaze, the middle-aged man smiled and said, I'm Fan Tian. Yi Xian smiled. What, are you going to gang up on me? Fan Tian smiled. Let me fight you first. Yi Xian nodded. All right. As he spoke, he opened his palm and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. Fan Tian suddenly smiled. Aren't you going to ask why we're targeting you? Yi Xian laughed. I don't think that's necessary. My life's creed is to be indifferent to life and death. If you can't accept it, then fight. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in his hands suddenly flew out. In the distance, Fan Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He took a step forward and suddenly punched out. At the instant he punched out, a ray of white light suddenly surged out from his fist. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian's attack was devoured by the ray of white light. At the same time, the space in front of Yi Xian was blasted into pieces by a fist, and then the formidable fist shot towards Yi Xian's face. Yi Xian's expression was calm. When the fist arrived in front of him, the green profound sword in his hand transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Bang! The fist was blocked by the sword shield. But in the next moment, Yi Xian's pupils constricted. He swiftly raised his head and saw a figure descend straight towards him. It was Fan Tian. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Overlapped sword strikes to decide life and death. Bang! At the instant he swung his sword, the space in the surroundings seemed like glass that had been struck by an iron hammer, and it shattered into pieces. Countless strands of sword energy shot into the surroundings, and the surroundings were in a mess. Meanwhile, Yi Xian retreated over 1 kilometer, and he just stopped when a spear tore through the air towards him. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't defend himself, and he stabbed with his sword instead. He went head-on against it. As soon as the sword and spear collided. Bang! A terrifying force suddenly erupted from the battlefield. Yi Xian and Fan Tian retreated at the same time. In the process of retreating, a flying sword suddenly appeared in front of Fan Tian. Fan Tian swept with his spear. Bang! The flying sword was instantly swept flying. But in the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above him, and then a strand of sword light slashed down. As soon as this sword descended, countless strands of space in the surroundings were instantly obliterated. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Fan Tian's eyes. Come! As soon as he finished speaking, he attacked instead of defending, and he stabbed his spear upwards. Hiss! A sharp sound of something tearing apart resounded. Bang! An expanse of sword energy suddenly shattered. In the next moment, both of them retreated madly, and the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hands suddenly flew up into the air. Hiss! The space here was instantly torn apart. Fan Tian raised his spear horizontally to block the attack. Bang! The spear shook violently, and Fan Tian was pushed over 1 kilometer back. But in the next moment, he tossed the spear forward, and it was like a bolt of lightning that instantly arrived before Yi Xian. Meanwhile, a sword and a shield appeared in front of Yi Xian. Bang! The sword and shield trembled violently when they were struck by the spear, and a powerful force swept out like a wave. Meanwhile, Fan Tian stretched his right hand forward, and the spear returned to his grasp. He was about to attack again when a flying sword suddenly slashed towards him. Fan Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. The speed of Yi Xian's flying sword had exceeded his expectations. He didn't think too much about it, and he charged forward and slashed with his spear. Bang! The flying sword was blocked. At this moment, Yi Xian showed up in front of him like a ghost. The next second, he swung his sword straight down. Life and death are decided by unsheathing the sword. Bang! As a wave of sword energy erupted, Fan Tian retreated over 3 kilometers. But he hadn't even stopped when another flying sword slashed towards him. Fan Tian frowned slightly, and he blocked with his spear horizontally. Bang! The spear shook violently, and Fan Tian retreated again. But in the next moment, his body became illusory. In the blink of an eye, a few dozen afterimages appeared around Yi Xian, and there were also a few dozen spears. Every single one of the afterimages was real. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. The green profound sword had already returned, but it was still too late. He couldn't use his sword and shield to block this attack. It was obvious that this was a premeditated move by Fan Tian, and he didn't want Yi Xian to have a chance to use his sword and shield. At this critical moment, Yi Xian took a step forward, and in the next moment, countless rays of sword energy drowned him and Fan Tian. Bang! In an instant, the rays of sword energy were destroyed, and Fan Tian had returned to his original position. A drop of blood slowly dripped down from the spear in his hand. There was a deep gash between his brows and his lips, and as blood flowed out, his face became a bloody face. In the distance, there was a hole on the left side of Yi Xian's chest, and it had been penetrated. Wan Daoming and Yan Bingshan had quite solemn expressions on their faces when they witnessed this scene. They were clearly aware of Fan Tian's strength, but they hadn't imagined that Yi Xian would actually be able to hold his own against a veteran inaction realm cultivator like Fan Tian. As expected of an inaction swordsman. Suddenly, the space here was torn apart, and then Dao Ling and Yan Bingshan appeared here. Wan Daoming's face fell when he saw them. He was unable to kill Yi Xian now. Dao Ling glanced coldly at Wan Daoming and the others, and then she turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. Are you all right? Yi Xian shook his head. Dao Ling nodded slightly. Let's go back first. Wan Daoming said, let's go. As he spoke, the three of them intended to leave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Is it over? Everyone gazed at Yi Xian while Dao Ling spoke solemnly, let's go back first. Yi Xian smiled, let's go back. As he spoke, he gazed at Wan Daoming and grinned, at the moment all of you acted against me, then you should have been prepared to fight me to the death. Someone must die today, and it's either all of you or me. As soon as he finished speaking. Bang! He was completely covered in blood. His bloodline had been completely activated. Yi Xian turned around to look at Dao Ling. Big sister, don't stop me. Otherwise, I'll kill you as well. Dao Ling was speechless. Chapter 2002. At the instant that Yi Xian's bloodline was activated, the expressions of everyone here had changed. Because Yi Xian's aura had risen explosively after his bloodline was activated. Moreover, the killing intent and viciousness he emanated was so strong that it caused everyone here to be visibly moved. What sort of bloodline is that? Dao Ling was shocked as well. She hadn't expected that the energy of Yi Xian's bloodline would actually be so terrifying. Most importantly, she hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually be so infuriated and intend to fight to the death. After all, it was very difficult for inaction realm experts to kill each other. They didn't have an advantage in numbers. Suddenly, Yi Xian transformed into a ray of blood-red light that charged at Fan Tian. It was so swift that it caused Fan Tian's expression to instantly change violently. He didn't dare act carelessly in the slightest, and he twisted his arm while his spear stabbed forward like a raging dragon. He was going head-on against Chen Shi. Bang! As soon as he stabbed forward, he withdrew his spear as if he'd been electrocuted. At the same time, Fan Tian retreated explosively for 3 kilometers, and he'd just stopped when a blood-red sword suddenly slashed towards him. Fan Tian's pupils constricted, and he swiftly raised his spear to block it. Bang! The spear shook the surroundings, and Fan Tian retreated once more. Moreover, the spear in his hand had cracked apart. Wan Daoming's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. The energy of his bloodline is so great. At this moment, Yi Xian was actually suppressing Fan Tian. Fan Tian had just stopped when an expanse of blood-red light assaulted his face. Fan Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he charged forward while stabbing his spear forward. In an instant, a powerful force that seemed like a volcano that had been accumulating strength for tens of thousands of years had suddenly erupted, and it swept out from his spear. Bang! In an instant, the space in an area of a few million kilometers seethed. Meanwhile, Yi Xian drew his sword and slashed. He drew his sword to decide life and death. He fought head-on. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the mysterious space in an area of a few million kilometers was instantly obliterated. It was pitch black. At the same time, Yi Xian and Fan Tian both retreated rapidly, and they retreated for hundreds of kilometers. The moment Fan Tian stopped, the long spear in his hand turned into nothingness. However, Yi Xian's sword was not damaged at all. Seeing this scene, Wang Daoming's face immediately became ugly. He had experienced the power of the sword in Yi Xian's hand before. In the entire alternate world, perhaps only the legendary heavenly plan saber in the hands of Mu Shen could contend against it. The most terrifying thing was not this sword, but the power of Yi Xian's bloodline. After Yi Xian activated the power of his bloodline, his aura kept increasing explosively, as if there was no limit. From afar, Fan Tian slowly raised his head and stared at Yi Xian. At this moment, his eyes were filled with a hint of seriousness. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's palm suddenly opened, and the green profound sword flew out. Chi! A ray of blood-red light tore through the battlefield. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Fan Tian's eyes. He suddenly squatted down, pulled his right hand back, and then clenched it into a fist. In the blink of an eye, he smashed his fist forward. Bang! A powerful barrier appeared in front of him. The fist domain. When Yi Xian's blood-red sword entered the fist domain, the green profound sword actually started to warp. However, the fist domain started to tremble violently as well. Meanwhile, Fan Tian suddenly stretched forward and grabbed the green profound sword with his right hand while a ferocious expression flashed through his eyes. Shatter! As soon as he finished speaking, he exerted force with his right hand. Bang! The green profound sword shook violently, and then a ray of dazzling light erupted from it. However, it didn't shatter. Fan Tian was stunned. It didn't shatter? Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him, and then a ray of light enveloped him. Core domain. Hiss! 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 The sound of something tearing resounded from within the core domain. In the blink of an eye, a figure retreated explosively from within the core domain. It was Fan Tian. Fan Tian retreated for over 10 kilometers before he stopped. At this moment, his entire body was covered in almost 10 scars. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword suddenly flew out. Fan Tian's pupils constricted, and he swiftly raised his arms to block it. Bang! The ray of light shattered, and Fan Tian retreated for over 10 kilometers again. Moreover, a deep scar had appeared on his right arm. Meanwhile, Yi Xian opened his palm again, and the green profound sword flew out once more. Bang! Fan Tian retreated explosively again. Just like that, Fan Tian retreated over and over again, and he was directly suppressed by Yi Xian's flying sword. When they witnessed this scene, Wang Daoming and the other inaction realm expert, Amuge, exchanged glances, and a wisp of shock flashed through their eyes. An inaction swordsman. Yi Xian's combat strength had greatly exceeded their expectations. After all, Fan Tian was a veteran mortal realm expert, and his combat strength was absolutely in the top 5 amongst the mortal realm experts of this world. However, at this moment, Fan Tian was actually being suppressed by Yi Xian. It wasn't just Wang Daoming and Amuge who were extremely shocked, even Dao Ling and Yan Bangshan were extremely shocked. They hadn't expected that Yi Xian's combat strength would actually be so terrifying. Especially the strength of Yi Xian's bloodline. It could simply be described as terrifying. Besides that, the sword in Yi Xian's hand had increased Yi Xian's combat strength by at least 30% to 40%. Meanwhile, Fan Tian was pushed over 30 kilometers back by a single swing of Yi Xian's sword, and Fan Tian's right arm was covered in scars. Fan Tian had a ferocious expression on his face after he stopped moving. He raised his head to look at Yi Xian, and there wasn't a trace of composure on his face anymore. He slowly clenched his right fist, and then another ray of light slashed towards him. Fan Tian charged forward and smashed his fist forward. At the instant he did, a strange scene appeared. His soul had suddenly left his body, and his body had been slashed into pieces by Yi Xian's attack. However, his soul had arrived in front of Yi Xian, and his soul was still in the posture of a punch. He'd abandoned his body for this punch. Dao Ling's pupils constricted, divine soul technique. As soon as she finished speaking, she charged at Yi Xian. Divine soul technique. Every inaction realm elite had their own strongest techniques, and the divine soul art was without a doubt mortal realm's strongest technique. It was equivalent to a secret technique that sacrificed his body to improve his soul. At this moment, the might of Fan Tian's punch was at least 10 times stronger than before. Fan Tian wanted to kill Yi Xian. At the instant that Dao Ling attacked, Wan Daoming vanished on the spot as well. He'd stopped Dao Ling. He naturally knew that Fan Tian wanted to kill Yi Xian, so he naturally wouldn't allow Dao Ling to stop Fan Tian. At the same time, Muge stopped Yan Bianshan, who was about to attack as well. In the distance, when Fan Tian's soul arrived in front of Yi Xian's expression was surprisingly calm. The Qingxian's sword in his hand trembled slightly. In the next moment, he stabbed out. Soul-setting strike. What was the most terrifying aspect of the green profound sword? It countered souls. This sword countered souls. Coupled with the soul-setting strike that Qing had taught him, it could be said that the combat strength of souls in front of him would be at least 10 times weaker. As soon as Yi Xian stabbed forward with his sword. Bang! Fan Tian's soul was blasted back, and it flew over 10 kilometers away. He just stopped over 30 kilometers away when a sword appeared above his head, and then it locked onto his soul. Everyone was dumbfounded. Wan Daoming looked at Yi Xian in the distance in disbelief. Muge's expression became extremely ugly. In the distance, Fan Tian looked at Yi Xian blankly. How is this possible? Yi Xian suddenly spread out his right hand and pressed down lightly. The green profound sword descended and entered Fan Tian's soul. Bang! Fan Tian's soul disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Devour. Seeing that the green profound sword could devour Fan Tian's soul, Wan Daoming and Muge's expressions changed drastically. At this moment, they understood. Yi Xian's sword could suppress souls. Fan Tian understood as well. He looked at Yi Xian and said softly, "So that's how it is." As he spoke, his soul became more and more illusory. Not long after, his soul disappeared. It was completely absorbed by the green profound sword. Yi Xian opened his palm and Fan Tian's storage ring flew into his hand. Then he turned to look at Wan Daoming. Seeing Yi Xian look over, Wan Daoming's eyes narrowed. "Yi Xian, do you want the 10,000 Dao sect and Dao Ling Palace to fight to the death?" Whether it was the 10,000 Dao sect or Dao Ling Palace, both feared each other. Both were super forces, and if they fought to the death, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, there was also the Fang Heart sect. Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his hand. He slowly walked toward Wan Daoming. "When you came to target me, you should have been prepared to fight to the death. As for the 10,000 Dao sect." With that, he grinned. "Do you think that after today, the 10,000 Dao sect will still exist?" After he spoke, he turned into a ray of blood-colored sword energy and disappeared. Chi! A ray of blood-colored sword energy tore through the battlefield. Wan Daoming's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. In the next moment, he opened his right hand, and a flame suddenly rose from his palm. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was enveloped by the flame, and then he charged forward and blasted a flaming fist towards Yi Xian. Rumble. A ray of sword energy and flames erupted, and then a figure retreated repeatedly. It was Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming retreated like crazy, and his expression was extremely ugly because he noticed that Yi Xian was much stronger than before. What kind of bloodline is this? He didn't have time to think because Yi Xian was charging at him once more. A ferocious smile appeared on Wan Daoming's face as he charged forward once more. At this moment, Dao Ling suddenly looked at Muge. "Aren't you going to run?" Muge looked at Dao Ling with a gloomy expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Dao Ling smiled. If you don't run now, you won't have the chance to run anymore. Muge threw a look at Wan Daoming, who was suppressed by Yi Xian in the distance. Then he turned around and disappeared into the horizon. After Muge left, a Dao Ling's smile gradually turned cold. She looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Do you need help? In the distance, Yi Xian turned to look at Dao Ling and grinned. Under 3 strikes, I'm invincible. Dao Ling. P.S. The new chapter has been written. Everyone can follow my WeChat public account. Search for the WeChat public account on Green Phoenix Peak and click follow to watch the new chapter. The big boss of the Milky Way galaxy has appeared. There were many fake public accounts. Everyone just had to follow on the Green Phoenix Peak. Anything else with a title or more words were all fake. Chapter 2003. 3 Swords. Dao Ling was a bit confused. What were the 3 swords that Yi Xian was talking about? She wanted to ask more, but Yi Xian had already rushed out. In the distance, Yi Xian was directly suppressing Wan Daoming. At this moment, Wan Daoming had no temper at all. Just at this moment, Wan Daoming was suddenly pushed back by a ray of sword energy. The next moment, Wan Daoming turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Escaped. Yi Xian was startled. This guy actually escaped. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian rode his sword and disappeared at the end of time and space. He naturally wouldn't stop at this moment. Seeing Yi Xian chase, Dao Ling softly said, "Let's go." As soon as she finished speaking, she disappeared with Yan Bianshan. 10,000 Dao sect. Wan Daoming directly fled back to the 10,000 Dao sect. He had nowhere else to go. Just as he returned to the 10,000 Dao sect, the sky behind him turned into a sea of blood. The next moment, a sword slashed down from the sea of blood. Wan Daoming narrowed his eyes slightly. He opened his palm, and a flame soared into the sky. However, as soon as the flame touched Yi Xian's blood sword, it was torn apart. The blood sword slashed down straight. Wan Daoming's eyes revealed a hint of viciousness. He stomped his right foot and his body turned into a pillar of fire that shot into the sky. Boom! In the sky, the blood sword was forced to stop by the pillar of fire, but the next moment, Wan Daoming fell straight down from the sky. Boom! When Wan Daoming fell into the 10,000 Dao sect, the entire sect trembled and countless mountains collapsed. The entire 10,000 Dao sect was shocked. In the sky, Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his hand. He looked down at Wan Daoming. At this moment, Wan Daoming's right arm was gone. His fire couldn't stop Yi Xian's sword at all. Most importantly, Yi Xian's strength was constantly increasing, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. Below, Wan Daoming stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, are you really going to be so ruthless? Yi Xian nodded. That's what we have to do. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Chi! A blood sword appeared above Wan Daoming's head like a ghost, and a small black hole appeared at the tip of the sword. The next moment, this small black hole rapidly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, a terrifying force swept across the entire 10,000 Dao sect. The expressions of all the powerful cultivators of the 10,000 Dao sect changed greatly and they fled in all directions. Wan Daoming, who was in the lead, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He clenched his left hand, and in an instant, the spacetime in front of him formed a spacetime wall. Not only that, but the spacetime energy in the surroundings converged towards him like a tide. Defend. In the face of Yi Xian's sword, he could only defend. This was because a head-on clash required both sides to be equal in strength. If they were not equal, then the weaker side would have to bear twice the force. At this moment, he could no longer withstand such terrifying power. He could only choose to defend. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword fell. Boom! The space-time wall directly shattered, and Wan Daoming's entire body was thrown into a mysterious space-time abyss. Just at this moment, a flying sword appeared before him once more. Wan Daoming's pupils suddenly shrank and he began to chant a mysterious incantation. The next moment, the space-time before him began to distort, and the green profound sword also began to distort. At the sight of this, Yi Xian, who was in the sky, frowned slightly. This power was a little weird. At this moment, with a thought, the green profound sword trembled violently. Boom! The green profound sword directly broke the strange power, but at this moment, Wan Daoming had already retreated tens of thousands of feet. Yi Xian looked at Wan Daoming. He glanced at Wan Daoming in the distance. Time. That strange power just now contained the attribute of time. Wan Daoming stared at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. What kind of sword is this? He found that a lot of his power was restrained by this sword, or rather, it was useless against this sword. Yi Xian did not waste any time. He disappeared from where he was. Wan Daoming's expression changed greatly. He didn't retreat anymore and stomped his right foot. Boom! His entire body began to burn. Burn his body. Burn his soul. He knew that he had no way out. Because Dao Ling and Yan Bianshan weren't too far away, and it was impossible for him to survive when 3 inaction realm experts were here. Since there was no chance of survival, then he might as well go all out. After he chose to burn his body and soul, Wan Daoming's aura instantly rose explosively. In the next moment, he transformed into a pillar of flames that shot into the sky. Hiss! In an instant, the surrounding spacetime was transformed into ash. Rumble! In the horizon, a flash of sword light and a flash of fire suddenly exploded. Yi Xian retreated explosively for over 100 kilometers. As soon as he stopped, his body split apart, and blood sprayed. Moreover, his soul was vanishing at a terrifying speed. A heavy injury. Meanwhile, Wan Daoming had stopped in the distance, and a sword was stuck in the center of his forehead. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. At the moment he held onto the sword, his soul started to gradually return to normal. The green profound sword wasn't just able to restrain the soul, it could even nurture it. Seeing that Yi Xian's soul had stabilized, Wan Daoming slowly closed his eyes. Failed. Even though he had traded his life for his strongest attack, he still couldn't seriously injure Yi Xian. He had lost. And if he lost, he would have to pay with his life. At this moment, Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword entered the center of Wan Daoming's forehead. Boom! Wan Daoming's soul was directly absorbed. Shortly after, Wan Daoming's soul disappeared completely, and his storage ring flew to Yi Xian. Yi Xian put away the storage ring and turned to look at the powerful cultivators of the 10,000 Dao sect. At this moment, Dao Ling appeared beside him. Leave the 10,000 Dao sect to me. Yi Xian nodded and didn't say much. He turned around and disappeared into the horizon. The entire sky was blood red. Dao Ling looked into the distance, and no one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Yan Bianshan appeared beside Dao Ling. Is teacher worried about something? Dao Ling nodded. This little fellow is too hot-tempered. Hot-tempered. Yan Bianshan nodded. He is indeed hot-tempered. The two women didn't expect things to develop to this extent. In an instant, 2 inaction realm cultivators had fallen. Moreover, they were both killed by Yi Xian. Yi Xian had the ability to kill inaction realm cultivators. Dao Ling had a complicated expression. Originally, there was a balance between the inaction realm cultivators of the other world, but now, with Yi Xian's arrival, this balance had been broken. Inaction realm cultivators were no longer high and mighty. Inaction realm cultivators would also die. A moment later, Dao Ling softly said, "Let's go." With that, she turned around and left. Yan Bianshan also left. After the 3 of them left, it didn't take long for countless powerful cultivators of the 10,000 Dao sect to die. Obviously, it was all done by Dao Ling Palace. Dao Ling was a smart woman. She naturally understood that she had to be ruthless. With the destruction of the 10,000 Dao sect, the entire other world was shocked. A former superpower was annihilated in a single night. The news of Yi Xian killing Wan Daoming and Fan Tian also spread. Yi Xian. This name, once again, shocked the entire other world. An Inaction Realm swordsman had killed 2 Inaction Realm cultivators. In an instant, Yi Xian's name spread throughout the other world like a plague. Soon, some busybodies began to compare Yi Xian to the current number 1 Inaction Realm cultivator, Mu Shen. Fang Cun sect. On a certain mountain peak, An Beishan looked at the distant sky with a solemn expression. Wan Daoming and Fan Tian were dead. They were all killed by Yi Xian. The 10,000 Dao sect was also gone. It had to be said that even he found it unbelievable. This Yi Xian actually had the strength to kill Fan Tian and Wan Daoming. It has to be said that before this, the Inaction Realm cultivators of the other world basically wouldn't fight because everyone knew that no one could do anything to the other. But now, Yi Xian had the strength to kill Inaction Realm cultivators one-on-one. Yi Xian. And Beishan slowly closed his eyes. After a while, he suddenly said, "Prepare a gift and send it to Venerable Yi of Dao Ling Palace. Tell him, to thank him for his guidance to Lianyan. When Lianyan comes out of seclusion, I will bring Lianyan to visit him." In the dark, an old man hesitated for a moment and then said, "He has the intention to curry favor." And Beishan smiled. "For Lianyan, I can do anything." The old man nodded slightly. Understood. With that, he left. And Lianyan was a swordsman, but it was still very difficult for him to reach Inaction Realm. If he had Yi Xian's guidance, it would be much easier. However, what right did Yi Xian have to guide him? After all, An Lianyan was not from Dao Ling Palace, and even if she was, she might not necessarily be able to guide him. Inaction Realm. Who would casually teach their unique skill? At that moment, the entire alternate world was discussing Yi Xian, the Inaction swordsman who had just appeared. Yi Xian also gained many titles, such as the alternate world's number 1 swordsman, the alternate world's youngest Inaction Realm expert, and so on. At that moment, Yi Xian had already returned to Dao Ling Palace. Healing. Inside Xiao Ta, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and began to heal his injuries. At that moment, his expression was solemn. Before, he had actually made a mistake, and that was to underestimate Wan Daoming. Wan Daoming's final attack had almost killed him. Not only Wan Daoming, but Fan Tian's final attack, if not for the Qingxian sword, he might have also died. Yi Xian knew very well that although he had killed 2 Inaction Realm experts, he could not underestimate any Inaction Realm expert. To be able to reach Inaction Realm, one must have some ability. Moreover, there was another reason why he could kill Inaction Realm experts, and that was the Qingxian sword. Strictly speaking, the Qingxian sword was an external object. He could not be arrogant. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes and began to focus on healing his injuries. Gradually, Yi Xian's body began to rapidly recover. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Undying Bloodline. Why didn't he upgrade the Undying Bloodline? The Undying Bloodline's function was very heaven-defying. If he could upgrade the Undying Bloodline, then when he fought in the future, unless his opponent killed him instantly, he would always be in an invincible position. To upgrade the Undying Bloodline, it was very simple. He could use the Mad Demon Bloodline to upgrade the Undying Bloodline. He could merge the Undying Bloodline with a bit of the Mad Demon Bloodline. Yi Xian immediately did it. Chapter 2004. Bloodline Fusion. Yi Xian began to use the Mad Demonic Bloodline to make up for the Immortal Bloodline. However, Yi Xian realized that it was very difficult. Because the Mad Demonic Bloodline was already much stronger than the Immortal Bloodline. The mad demonic bloodline would not fuse with the immortal bloodline, or directly devour the immortal bloodline. This made him a little embarrassed. However, Yi Xian did not give up. After all, he was the master. Under Yi Xian's control, gradually, his mad demonic bloodline and immortal bloodline began to fuse. Of course, he did not fuse all of it. He only took out a little bit of the mad demonic bloodline to fuse with the immortal bloodline. Even so, the effect was very terrifying. The immortal bloodline's aura began to skyrocket. As for the mad demonic bloodline, it was suppressed by him. If he did not suppress the mad demonic bloodline, the immortal bloodline could not be activated. Although it was his bloodline power, the mad demonic bloodline was very domineering. If he hadn't been suppressing it earlier, his immortal bloodline would have been swallowed by it. The mad demonic bloodline had been unhappy for a long time that the immortal bloodline could exist in his body. Just like that, time passed little by little. After a few months, Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly burst out an extremely terrifying bloodline aura. Boom! With the appearance of this bloodline aura, the space in Xiao Ta's body began to tremble. After a long time, a red light appeared around Yi Xian's body. Immortal bloodline. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, the blood color gradually faded. Su Wang suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's mouth slightly curled up. Su Wang asked, "Improved?" Yi Xian nodded. He opened his palm and gently pressed down. With this, his whole body returned to normal. Immortal bloodline. Yi Xian chuckled, "This immortal bloodline has been improved. In the future, my body's healing speed will greatly increase." Xu Wang said, "Congratulations." Yi Xian laughed. Actually, he was very curious about the Undying Imperial clan. His Undying bloodline had already made a breakthrough. He wondered if the Undying Imperial clan's Undying bloodline had any changes. "When I have time, I have to go back and take a look." As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and 2 storage rings appeared in his hand. These were the storage rings he had obtained from Wan Daoming and Fan Tian. Yi Xian swept a glance. In the 2 storage rings, there were actually less than 200,000 immeasurable divine crystals. The total value of the 2 storage rings was less than 200,000. Yi Xian frowned. Was he that poor? Besides that, there were also some divine objects. However, they weren't of much use to him. After all, he had the Azure Sword. This sword could both attack and defend, so no divine object could compare to it. Yi Xian handed one of the storage rings to Su Wang, and said, "There are 100,000 immeasurable divine crystals in there, so you better spend them sparingly." Su Wang didn't refuse and took the storage ring. Then, he looked at Yi Xian, "Should we spar?" Yi Xian smiled, "That's exactly what I was thinking." The 2 of them left Xiao Ta and arrived at an unknown and mysterious space. Su Wang looked at Yi Xian, "You can't use the Azure Sword." Yi Xian laughed, "Of course." He opened his palm and an ordinary sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and disappeared on the spot. Hiss! A ray of sword light instantly appeared before Su Wang's forehead. Su Wang's body suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned around to slash down. Boom! The ray of sword light shattered and the 2 of them retreated at the same time. As the 2 of them retreated, countless flying swords suddenly slashed at them from all directions. In an instant, the entire mysterious space was filled with flying swords, and it was impossible to tell who was who. Numerous dense sounds of tearing resounded incessantly in the surroundings. Flying swords. Both of them were using flying swords. Because every single flying sword was tearing through everything to its heart's content. Not only did the number of flying swords not decrease, there were more and more of them instead. In a short period of time, there were at least a few 100,000 flying swords here. Both of them were controlling at least 200,000 flying swords. Needless to say, it was extremely mentally exhausting. Moreover, every single one of their flying swords was lethal, and the slightest carelessness might cause their bodies to be destroyed. They were playing with their hearts. Right at this moment, both of them stopped at the same time. A moment later, they exchanged a glance, and then all the flying swords vanished in an instant. Because neither of their flying swords could do anything to the other. Meanwhile, Su Wang slowly closed her eyes and charged forward. As soon as she did, her body froze on the spot, and then her soul left her body and transformed into a ray of light that slashed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian took a step forward. In the blink of an eye, a beam of sword light shrouded him. Core Sword Domain. As soon as Su Wang's soul charged into the Core Sword Domain, the entire domain instantly became illusory, and then it actually started to be obliterated inch by inch. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's Core Sword Domain to shatter, and then a sword stabbed towards the center of Yi Xian's forehead like a thunderclap. It was extremely swift. Yi Xian's reaction was very swift. He'd suddenly moved to the side at the instant his Core Sword Domain shattered, and he'd barely dodged the attack. But right at this moment, Su Wang slashed horizontally with her sword. Hiss! An expanse of light slashed straight towards Yi Xian's throat. If this attack were to hit, then Yi Xian's head would be instantly separated from his body. However, right when this attack was about to strike Yi Xian's throat, another sword blocked Su Wang's attack. Bang! An expanse of light shattered, and then Yi Xian was blasted over 1 kilometer back. However, he didn't stop moving, and he stabbed with his sword once more. Yi Xian's expression was calm. This time, he didn't choose to retreat, and he stabbed with his sword instead. Neither side was willing to give in. Bang! As soon as the two swords collided, the surrounding space was instantly obliterated and shattered. After that, countless strands of sword chi shot out from the surroundings, and every single strand of sword chi could easily tear the space in the universe apart. Right at this moment, their figures turned ethereal at the same time. In the blink of an eye, 2 rays of light suddenly erupted like fireworks. In an instant, the space in an area of hundreds of thousands of kilometers was obliterated. After Yi Xian stopped moving, Su Wang suddenly appeared above him, and then a strand of light slashed down. Sword draw to decide life and death. Yi Xian's expression became slightly solemn as soon as this attack descended. In the past, he'd always executed sword draw to decide life and death against others, and he'd never faced the strength of this attack head-on. But at this moment, he suddenly realized that his father had some ability. This attack was really quite amazing. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. He didn't retreat, but he advanced instead, and he similarly drew his sword and slashed. Sword draw to decide life and death as well. As soon as the two swords collided, the space in an area of a few million kilometers instantly turned pitch black. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Just like that, after about 15 minutes, Yi Xian and Su Wang left that spacetime. Both of them had sword wounds on their bodies, especially Su Wang, whose body was covered in sword light. Because of this, her body was somewhat exposed. Su Wang also noticed this, and his expression became slightly unnatural. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Your master is a gentleman, and I definitely won't look at what I shouldn't look at. Su Wang, at this moment, Yi Xian appeared in front of Su Wang. He took out a coat and put it on Su Wang. Then he said, you should have gained a lot from the battle just now. You can cultivate in the tower, and if you need anything, you can tell me directly. Su Wang nodded. Okay. With that, she returned to Xiao Ta. At this moment, Yi Xian turned and looked not far away. The spacetime there split open, and Dao Ling appeared. Dao Ling looked around, and then she smiled. Were you sparring with someone just now? Yi Xian nodded. Adeline he cast a deep look at Yi Xian. It was clear that there was another inaction realm elite by Yi Xian's side. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Elder Sister Ling, when I obtained Fan Tian and Wan Daoming spatial rings, I discovered that there were only 200,000 immeasurable divine crystals inside. Why is it so little? Dao Ling said in a deep voice, do you think 200,000 immeasurable divine crystals is very little? Yi Xian frowned and asked, is that a lot? Dao Ling rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. Of course. Do you know that your sister's life savings are less than a few tens of thousands? When she spoke up to hear, she seemed to have thought of something, and she paused for a moment before continuing. Did you think I was very stingy when I gave you 10,000 boundless divine crystals earlier? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. A little. Dao Ling shook her head and smiled, you ungrateful fellow. Let me tell you, immeasurable divine crystals are very, very rare. Even we have to risk our lives to obtain them. Hearing that, Yi Xian was a little curious. Even in action realm elites have to risk their lives to obtain them? Dao Ling nodded. Do you remember that I asked you to help me? Yi Xian nodded. Because of these immeasurable divine crystals? Dao Ling smiled and said, yes. This time, I want to bring you to a place, a forbidden place in the alternate world. Even we might die there. Yi Xian was a little curious. What place? Dao Ling said softly, the heavenly tomb. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The heavenly tomb? What place? Dao Ling smiled and said, a very strange place. Only there are immeasurable divine crystals. It's said that God Mu disappeared from that place. Of course, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it should be true. Because that's the only place in the entire alternate world that we haven't explored clearly. As she spoke, she paused for a moment before she continued, in the past, a huge amount of immeasurable divine crystals would appear in the heavenly tomb every year. But for some unknown reason, the number of immeasurable divine crystals has been decreasing recently. If this continues, then we in Action Realm experts will face an extremely awkward situation, and that's that we won't be able to cultivate anymore. You should be aware that ordinary profound energy is useless to us once we attain the inaction realm. Only divine treasures like immeasurable divine crystals can allow us to continue cultivating. So, I've contacted some inaction realm experts this time. We'll form a group to explore this place and see exactly what secrets it holds. Yi Xian came to an understanding when he heard this. The heavenly tomb. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, I don't really want to go yet. Dao Ling was slightly stunned, and then she said, why? Yi Xian spoke seriously, it wasn't easy for me to become invincible. I don't want to lose this feeling of invincibility. Dao Ling's expression froze. P.S. If you didn't watch yesterday's news, you can take a look. Follow the official WeChat account, on Green Phoenix Peak. Then you can watch it in the Sword Domain news section. New news. Qing appears in the Milky Way galaxy. This is a news story that's related to the plot of this book. There will be a sequel to this news story and 2 more news stories in the future. Finally, I've been reflecting recently. Indeed, 2 chapters a day is too little. When I read it in the toilet, I finished reading it before my dad even finished pooping. If I was a little more lame, those 2 chapters would have been completely boring. Just like yesterday, I felt like I finished 2 chapters. Fuck, that's it? That's it? What a joke on Green Phoenix Peak. It's awkward. I understand those who scold me. Sometimes, even I feel like I'm really not a good person. I won't scold myself anymore. I feel like I'm losing face. I'll talk about this awkward question next time. I'll work hard to save chapters. I'll work hard to save chapters and write essays. Remember to follow the official WeChat account, on Green Phoenix Peak. Chapter 2005. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Dao Ling was speechless. This guy actually wanted to stay here and bully others. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian. That's not a good idea. Sometimes, failure is not a bad thing for us. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile and did not say anything else. Those who understood would naturally understand. Those who did not understand would not say anything. Yi Xian said, "When are we going?" Of course, he would not stay here forever to show off. Having no opponent was indeed a kind of pain. Dao Ling smiled. Now. She was very happy that Yi Xian agreed to go. After all, with Yi Xian's current strength, who dared to underestimate him? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Now? Dao Ling nodded. Is there a problem? Yi Xian smiled. No. Let's go. Dao Ling suddenly opened her palm, and a storage ring appeared in her hand. This was sent by an Baishan of the Fengsuan sect. He said to thank you for your guidance to Lianyan. Yi Xian glanced at the storage ring. There were 20,000 infinite divine crystals in the ring. Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling. This? Dao Ling smiled. He wants you to guide Lianyan so that she has a chance to reach the inaction realm. Yi Xian smiled. It's a small matter. Dao Ling blinked. Are you really willing to guide that girl and let her reach the inaction realm? Yi Xian smiled. That girl is kind. If possible, I am willing to help her reach the inaction realm. However, this also depends on the person. Dao Ling smiled. That girl is indeed not bad. With that said, she placed the storage ring in Yi Xian's hand and said, "Let's go." Yi Xian nodded. The two left. In the air, Yi Xian looked down. His intuition told him that this feeling of invincibility would probably be gone for a long time. Soon, the two arrived in a starry sky. And in this starry sky, there were 3 other people. One of them was Yan Bianshan. Other than Yan Bianshan, there was also a middle-aged man and an elder. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Yi Xian, nice to meet you." Yi Xian looked at Dao Ling. Dao Ling smiled and said, "He's Jun Daolin from Dao Edge Realm. He's also the first person from Dao Edge Realm to reach an action state." Jun Daolin. Yi Xian was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he gazed at Jun Daolin and said with a smile, "Jun Daolin, nice to meet you. To tell you the truth, I've admired you for a long time. There are still legends about you in the Dao Brink." Jun Daolin laughed heartily. I never thought that our Dao border realm would have 3 annulled realm cultivators. I must say, our Dao border realm is full of talents. Yi Xian and Dao Ling looked at each other and smiled. Perhaps it was because they were all from the Dao boundary realm, the 3 of them felt a sense of kinship. At this moment, Dao Ling introduced the old man. This is the Source Venerate, an old senior of our Dao border realm. Yi Xian looked at the Source Venerate and cupped his fists. Nice to meet you. The Source Venerate didn't put on airs and immediately cupped his fists. Nice to meet you. At this moment, a voice came from afar. I'm not late, am I? Everyone looked over and saw a middle-aged man walking over slowly from afar. It was the square-inch Sexan Baishan. 6 annulled realm cultivators. Yi Xian was slightly surprised. He hadn't expected Dao Ling to call over so many annulled realm cultivators. It seemed that the heavenly tomb was really dangerous. At this moment, Dao Ling said, "Then let's go." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve, and a space-time tunnel appeared in front of them. After everyone entered the space-time tunnel, they began to travel through space. They were very fast. On the way, Yi Xian walked to Dao Ling's side and asked, "Sister Ling, why is the heavenly tomb so dangerous?" Dao Ling smiled. "You'll know when you get there." Yi Xian said, "Can't you reveal it in advance?" Dao Ling thought for a moment and said, "The strangest thing about that place is necro energy." Yi Xian frowned slightly. Necro energy? Dao Ling nodded. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "A special energy?" Dao Ling smiled and said, "We're almost there. Remember, don't be careless when you get there, and don't let the necro energy get close to you. Otherwise, even the body of an annulled realm expert won't be able to endure it." Moreover, even your soul might be devoured by the necro energy. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Right at this moment, a ray of white light suddenly appeared at the end of the space-time tunnel. In the next moment, everyone passed through that ray of white light. The white light dispersed, and their feet touched the ground. Yi Xian frowned immediately because he sensed an extremely uncomfortable aura. He opened his eyes, and what entered his eyes was a dim plane. He couldn't see the end of the plane, and the sky above the plane was dark, and it carried an extremely heavy pressure. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Is this the heavenly tomb?" Dao Ling shook her head. "It's not here, it's at the end of the plane. We can't fly here, so we can only walk there." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Why?" Dao Ling pointed at the sky. "There are some dark creatures up there. Although they aren't as terrifying as the necro energy, they're still very annoying." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." Everyone continued forward. At this moment, Jun Daolin suddenly smiled and said, "Everyone, my intuition tells me that our journey will be quite bumpy." And Beishan smiled and said, "If things go wrong later, I'll have to flee." All of them smiled knowingly when they heard this. Actually, all of them were very clearly aware that they wouldn't fight to the death. If they really encountered danger that they couldn't defeat, then they would definitely flee. Even though infinite divine crystals were good, their lives were even better. Right at this moment, Jun Daolin suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Exalted Yi, may I ask who forged this sword in your hand?" All of them gazed at Yi Xian and the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. Actually, all of them were extremely curious about Yi Xian's sword. After all, the reason Yi Xian was able to kill 2 inaction realm experts in succession wasn't just because of his bloodline, it was also because of this sword. Yi Xian glanced at the green profound sword in his hand and smiled, "My younger sister forged it." Jun Daolin grinned and didn't ask any further questions. It would be slightly rude to ask any further. On the other hand, Yi Xian was slightly depressed. "Why aren't all of you asking anymore? I'll let Qing or bring me along to show off." Yi Xian thought for a moment before he smiled, "Do all of you want to take a look at this sword?" Jun Daolin was slightly stunned, and then he said, "Can I?" Yi Xian smiled, "Of course." As he spoke, he passed the green profound sword to Jun Daolin. "Damn it. If I, Yi Xian, want to show off, no one can stop me." Jun Daolin received the green profound sword, and then he sized it up for a short moment before his expression gradually turned solemn. Meanwhile, Beishan and the other Origin Venerate had come over as well, and Dao Ling couldn't help but walk over as well. The expressions of all the inaction realm experts here gradually became solemn. This sword was too special. The space-time Dao contained within it was actually something that even they couldn't understand. As if he'd thought of something, the Origin Venerates suddenly said, "Exalted Yi, about Chidi's death." Yi Xian grinned. "When I was in the lower dimensions, his clone went to look for trouble with me. I wasn't at the inaction realm at that time, and he bullied me. So, my younger sister attacked him." All of their expressions became slightly unnatural when they heard this. "There's a big shot standing behind this fellow?" Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "It's quite a pity." The Origin Venerate asked instinctively, "What's a pity?" Yi Xian smiled, "I thought I would be able to meet her. Unfortunately, I didn't." The Origin Venerate frowned slightly, "Didn't she appear?" All of them gazed at Yi Xian with slight bewilderment. Yi Xian shook his head, "She didn't appear. She just sent her sword here. After that, she killed Chidi's clone. However, she was too worried about me, so she used Chidi's clone to kill his main body. Alas, actually, I could have just left Chidi to deal with myself. Alas, this younger sister of mine is great, but she's too afraid of something happening to me. She likes to kill everything that poses a threat to me." All of their expressions froze. They were shocked. Needless to say, they were completely shocked. He killed Chidi's main body through a clone. Moreover, Chidi hadn't even arrived. In the beginning, they'd thought that Qi Di had been killed right in front of them. However, that wasn't the case at all. He killed Qi Di's main body through a clone. What sort of strength would be needed to accomplish that? After all, Qi Di was at the inactivity realm. Under normal circumstances, an expert at such a realm would be able to flee even if he wasn't a match for his opponent. However, Qi Di had died. What did that mean? It meant that Qi Di didn't even have a chance to flee. An expert above the inactivity realm? Their expressions became unsightly when they thought up to this point. Meanwhile, the Origin Venerate gazed at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Venerate Yi. If I may be so bold as to ask, what cultivation realm is your younger sister at?" All of them gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian grinned, "I don't know either. However, there's one thing I'm sure of, and it's that she's definitely far beyond the inactivity realm." The Origin Venerate frowned slightly. "Why?" Yi Xian smiled, "Because with my current strength, I'll be able to take 3 of her attacks at most. After that, I'll definitely lose." Everyone's expressions froze once more. At this moment, Xiao Ta was slightly infuriated. Damn it. This young master really isn't human when he's putting on an act. He's even better at putting on an act than our master. 3 attacks? This fellow clearly can't even take a single attack. 3 attacks. How shameless does he have to be to say something like that? Meanwhile, the Origin Venerate spoke in a low voice. "With Venerate Ye's ability, you can only take 3 attacks?" Yi Xian nodded. "I can only take 3 attacks. If I go all out, I should be able to take around 5 attacks." The Origin Venerate's expression froze. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Everyone had witnessed Yi Xian's strength. He could only take 5 attacks if he went all out, so how terrifying was this mysterious expert's strength? It was unimaginable. No one doubted Yi Xian's words. After all, Yi Xian was an inactivity realm expert, so he probably disdained lying. Meanwhile, Yi Xian said, "Actually, as far as I know, there are 2 more experts who can fight my younger sister." 2 more. Everyone looked at Yi Xian, and the Origin Venerate spoke in a low voice. "There are others who have surpassed the inactivity realm?" Yi Xian nodded. The Origin Venerate hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, "Who?" Everyone stared fixedly at Yi Xian with extreme curiosity. Yi Xian smiled, "My father." Everyone was speechless. Chapter 2006. Your father? The expressions of everyone here became extremely strange when they heard this. The Origin Venerable hesitated for a moment and said, "Venerable Yi, you mean that your father is as strong as the person who created this sword?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." The Origin Venerable glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian suddenly activated his bloodline energy. Bang! The formidable bloodline energy caused the expressions of everyone here to change. Yi Xian smiled, "That's my father's bloodline." All of them were speechless. The surroundings fell into silence once more. A second-generation genius. Damn it. They finally understood. This fellow was a proper second-generation genius. Moreover, he wasn't just an ordinary second-generation genius. He was a strong second-generation genius. Most importantly, this fellow was at the inaction realm as well. Meanwhile, the Origin Venerable couldn't help but ask, "Venerable Yi, didn't you say that 2 people can compare to the person who created this sword? Where's the other one?" Yi Xian smiled, "My sworn big brother." Everyone's expressions froze once more. The corners of the Origin Venerable's mouth twitched. Damn it. What a stupid mouth. What's the point of asking so many questions? All of them continued forward, but the atmosphere had become slightly strange. Actually, they were still shocked. They didn't think that Yi Xian was lying because the spacetime Tao contained within the sword in Yi Xian's hand had truly exceeded their understanding. What did that mean? It meant that the strength of the person who created this sword was definitely above the inaction realm. There was also Yi Xian's bloodline power. His bloodline power was not normal at first glance. It was abnormally powerful. Needless to say, all of them had quite complicated emotions. They thought that they were the strongest experts in this world, but now, they noticed that there was someone even stronger than them. As the old saying goes, there is no such thing as the strongest, there is only stronger. Right at this moment, all of them suddenly turned around. An old man was walking over swiftly with a young man by his side. Dao Ling was slightly stunned when she saw this person. Yi Xian asked. "You don't know him?" Dao Ling smiled. "Yes, but not that close. That old man is also an inaction realm martial artist. His name is Ian Paragon, and as his name suggests, he's not a very good person. That's why I didn't invite him this time. I didn't expect that he would come on his own." Venerable Ian brought the young man to the front of the crowd. He cupped his fists and smiled. "Everyone, I came uninvited. I hope you don't not welcome me." Dao Ling smiled. "Why would I? One more person means one more strength." Venerable Ian looked at Dao Ling and said with a smile, "Venerable Spirit, you invited so many people but didn't invite me. Are you looking down on me?" Dao Ling laughed. "Venerable Ian, you come and go like a ghost, I can't find you even if I wanted to." Reverend Ian smiled. "So it was like this. I thought the spiritual venerable was looking down on me." The Yuan venerables and the others frowned when they heard Senior Yin's words. Was this old man retarded? He still dared to target Dao Ling at this time. Didn't he see that Dao Ling Palace had 3 inaction realm martial artists? At this time, the Yuan venerables suddenly said, "Venerable Ian, have you been in seclusion during this period?" Venerable Ian smiled. "Yes. I had some enlightenment previously, so I have been in seclusion all this time." "What, did something big happen in the alternate world?" The Yuan venerable looked at Venerable Ian strangely. At this time, Bashan suddenly looked at the young man beside Venerable Ian. "Venerable Ian, is this your disciple?" Everyone looked at the young man. The young man wasn't at the inaction realm. Venerable Ian smiled. "This is my disciple, Xiao Yan. Please take care of him." Hearing this, everyone's brows furrowed. The Yuan venerable said in a low voice, "Venerable Ian, you should know how dangerous this place is. Aren't you afraid of an accident bringing him along?" Venerable Ian smiled. "What's there to be afraid of? Young people should come out to explore and see the world, right?" Everyone was speechless. Meanwhile, Venerable Ian suddenly glanced at Yi Xian. "Others aren't afraid, so how could my disciple be afraid?" Everyone saw Lord Yin's gaze. At that moment, everyone's expression turned strange. "Damn it. Can your disciple compare to young Master Yi? He's already killed 2 inaction realm experts. Moreover, there are 3 extraordinary big shots behind him." The Yuan venerable glanced at Venerable Ian, and he instinctively moved to the side. His intuition told him that something would happen to this fellow, and it was better to stay away from him. Staying away from idiots was the way to survive. Meanwhile, Dao Ling glanced at Venerable Ian and said, "Let's go. Let's get down to business first." Everyone nodded. Now wasn't the time to get into a conflict. They continued forward. On the way, Yi Xian glanced at his surroundings. He noticed that this place was quite strange, and the further they went, the more uneasy he felt. After all, with his current strength, anything that could make him feel uneasy was definitely not simple. Meanwhile, Dao Ling suddenly said, "Be careful. If you feel that something's wrong, then flee. Understand?" Yi Xian nodded. He naturally wouldn't put on a brave front. Before long, they arrived at the side of a cliff. When Yi Xian stood at the edge of the cliff and looked down, he was shocked. A dense expanse of tombs. The entire cliff was covered in tombs that stretched as far as the eye could see. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Big Sister Ling, this Dao Ling smiled and said, "You're shocked, right?" Yi Xian nodded. Dao Ling said softly, "It's my first time here, and I'm just like you. I'm filled with shock." As she spoke, she looked down at some tombs. Many experts have died here in the past, but I don't know why they died. There are no records. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "There are too many unknowns in this world." Dao Ling smiled and said, "Yes." As she spoke, she leaped down. Everyone followed suit. When they reached the bottom, Yi Xian saw a dilapidated stone tablet. There were 4 big words on the stone tablet: Heavenly Tomb Grounds. Everyone continued forward. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Big Sister Ling, have you excavated these tombs before?" Dao Ling smiled and said, "Of course." Yi Xian was a little curious, "Are there corpses inside?" Dao Ling's expression became a little solemn, "Not corpses." Yi Xian frowned slightly. At this moment, Dao Ling said again, "They're living people." Yi Xian was stunned. Dao Ling said softly, "Those lying inside are all alive and breathing. However, they seem to be under some spell and can't be awakened. Even with our strength, we can't awaken them." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "It's so strange." Dao Ling nodded, "This place is very strange." As she spoke, she paused and said, "There was once an inanimate realm expert who died here. The cause of death is unknown." Yi Xian was about to speak when he realized that everyone's expressions had become solemn. Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the distance. Not far away, there was a grave. This grave was different from the others. First of all, it was different in size. This grave was about twice the size of the others. Other than that, this grave was blood red in color, as if it was made of fresh blood. Dao Ling said in a low voice, "A bloody grave. When you encounter this kind of grave, you must be extremely careful. Don't get close, because there is dead spirit aura inside that can kill inanimate realm experts." Yi Xian glanced at the bloody grave. Indeed, this bloody grave made him feel a little uneasy. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked, "What about the infinite divine crystal?" Dao Ling suddenly stopped and looked into the distance. Yi Xian followed her gaze and saw a black vortex not far away. Dao Ling said in a low voice, "The infinite divine crystal is obtained from this kind of black vortex, and there are many of these black vortexes in this heavenly tomb. But not long ago, there were fewer and fewer of them. Not only that, but there are also no infinite divine crystals in some black vortexes." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. "This time, we're going to go deeper. We're going to go deeper into the place that we thought was dangerous and see what happened." Yi Xian looked into the distance. "In front?" Dao Ling nodded. Everyone continued forward. At this time, everyone's expressions had become very solemn. They were all inanimate realm experts, but inanimate realm did not mean invincible. After walking for a short while, they stopped once more. In front of them was a black river. On the other side of the river was a black forest. Dao Ling said softly, "We've never crossed this river before." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Dao Ling was about to speak when Venerable Yin suddenly laughed. "Venerable Spirit, I think the person you brought is too talkative." Hearing this, everyone looked at Venerable Yin. The source Venerable subconsciously retreated to the side. Damn, how did this idiot get to the inanimate realm? Even if you can't sense Yi Xian's realm, you should at least be able to see some clues from Dao Ling's attitude toward Yi Xian. Does this old fellow cultivate without training his brain? Dao Ling looked at Venerable Yin. "Do you have any questions?" Venerable Yin smiled and said, "Venerable Spirit, I feel that the person you brought is very unruly. Along the way, he has the most questions, asking non-stop. Young man, if you aren't strong enough, you should just watch and learn. There are so many seniors here, so when is it your turn to speak?" As he spoke, he looked at the source Venerable and the others. "Everyone, do you think I'm right?" The source Venerable hurriedly shook his head. Venerable Yin, don't bring me along. I'm not very familiar with you. Thank you. As he spoke, he walked to the side. Damn. This idiot wants to bring me along? Too scary. Jun Daolin and the others also moved to the side. It's better to stay away from this kind of brainless person who likes to seek attention. Seeing the attitude of the Source Venerable and the others, Venerable Yin frowned. At this moment, he felt that something was wrong. Yi Xian looked at Venerable Yin and smiled. Venerable Yin, I'm asking my sister Ling, not you, right? Venerable Yin looked at Yi Xian. Don't you think you're a bit talkative? You've been chattering non-stop along the way. Yi Xian blinked. What does it have to do with you? Hearing this, Venerable Yin narrowed her eyes. Venerable Spirit, is this junior of yours so ill-mannered? If you don't care, I don't mind teaching him a lesson for you. Everyone, at this moment, the man beside Venerable Yin, Xiao Yan, suddenly smiled. Master, how is he worth your time? As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Brother, why don't we spar for a bit? Yi Xian said in a low voice, you're at the half-step indestructible realm, while I'm only at the indestructible realm. This isn't fair. Unless you lower yourself to the indestructible realm. Hearing this, the Source Venerable and the others looked at Yi Xian, their faces full of shock. Damn, is this something a human would say? Chapter 2007. You're at the Nirvana realm, yet you want others to lower their cultivation? That's inhumane. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan suddenly smiled, no problem. As soon as he finished speaking, he started lowering his cultivation to the Taoist realm, and then he gazed at Yi Xian, bring it on. Yi Xian nodded and was about to speak. However, Xiao Yan suddenly vanished on the spot, and his fist shot towards Yi Xian's face. He who attacked first had the advantage. Countless life and death experiences had allowed him to understand that one should never waste one's breath in battle. A single word of nonsense might cost one his life. He'd grasped the moment Yi Xian was about to speak. He knew that Yi Xian would absolutely not know that he would attack right away. Xiao Yan had put all his strength into this punch. His objective was very simple. He wanted to kill Yi Xian with a single strike and not give Yi Xian any chance. Right when his fist arrived before Yi Xian's face, Yi Xian's expression was extraordinarily calm, and he showed no intention of attacking. Xiao Yan instantly felt panic in his heart when he witnessed this scene. His intuition told him that something was off, but he had no path of retreat at this moment. Kill! A wisp of viciousness flashed through Xiao Yan's eyes, and the profound energy within his body surged madly as he fought with all his might. Right when his fist was about to smash against the center of Yi Xian's forehead, his figure suddenly stopped moving. Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. What's going on? Why did I stop? In the next moment, his pupils constricted, and he swiftly grabbed his throat with both hands while a strand of blood sprayed from between his fingers. Instant kill. How dare you? Right at this moment, Lord Yin was suddenly enraged, and she vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he raised his sword and slashed down. Bang! Lord Yin was blasted 3 kilometers away by Yi Xian's attack. After Lord Yin stopped moving, she gazed at Yi Xian with disbelief. You? Nirvana realm. Yi Xian glanced at Lord Yin. Are you surprised? Lord Yin's expression was slightly unsightly. You're actually at the Nirvana realm. Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand and the green profound sword flew out. In the distance, Lord Yin's eyes narrowed, and a metal staff suddenly appeared in his hand. In the next moment, he smashed it forward. Boom! The sword light shattered, but Lord Yin retreated explosively for another 3 kilometers. Moreover, the iron staff in her hand was directly slashed into 2 by Yi Xian's sword strike. Seeing this scene, Venerable Yin's expression instantly turned ugly. Boundless swordsman. Since when did another boundless swordsman appear in this alternate world? At this moment, Yi Xian, who was in the distance, suddenly disappeared. Chi! A ray of sword light tore through the battlefield. Lord Yin squinted her eyes. She rushed forward and punched out. On her fist, the shadow of a beast suddenly appeared. Boom! That punch actually blocked Yi Xian's sword by force. Moreover, it even shattered Yi Xian's sword light. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. He gazed at Lord Yin. Lord Yin spoke in a low voice, "Since you're in the boundless realm, then why did you kill my disciple? Aren't you bullying the weak? The strong bullying the weak." Yi Xian smiled, "Geezer, it seems like you and your disciple came looking for trouble with me first, right?" Lord Yin spoke angrily, "How does old man know that you're in the boundless realm?" Yi Xian smiled, "I understand. If I'm in the boundless realm, then don't bully me. If I'm not, then I deserve to be bullied, right?" Lord Yin stared at Yi Xian, "You're clearly in the boundless realm, yet you're pretending to be in the Taoist realm. Your intentions are truly evil." Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled, "Geezer, it was clearly you who acted against me for no reason, yet you're blaming me now?" Lord Yin spoke angrily, "If you revealed your identity, then would the old man act against you?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "You really are a fucking genius." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A blood-red ray of light tore through the surroundings. A wisp of a ferocious expression flashed through Lord Yin's eyes. "Do you think the old man is afraid of you?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stomped his right foot against the ground, and his figure leaned forward as he roared furiously, "Fuck off!" Bang! An illusory image of a beast suddenly appeared behind Lord Yin, and then it roared furiously. Bang! The space in the surroundings trembled violently, and it rippled like water. However, it didn't shatter. Rumble! Yi Xian's attack was blocked once more, but countless rays of light instantly drowned Lord Yin. Hiss! 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 Numerous ripping sounds suddenly resounded, and then everyone watched as Lord Yin retreated explosively for over 1 kilometer. He just stopped when countless strands of fresh blood sprayed violently from his body. At this moment, Lord Yin's entire body was covered in scars. As for Yi Xian, he wasn't harmed at all. The expressions of the Yuan Venerables and the others became solemn once more when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian's combat strength was truly formidable. In the distance, Lord Yin wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth and gazed at Yi Xian. "Do you really intend to fight to the death?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "It seems like you were the one who looked for trouble first, right?" Lord Yin said furiously, "The old man merely said a few words to you, yet you intend to kill the old man? Are you even human?" Yi Xian, everyone else, Lord Yin continued, "If I said a few words to you and offended you, then can't the old man apologize to you?" As he spoke, he cupped his fists and said, "Lord Yi, what I said just now was slightly troublesome. I hope that you can be magnanimous and forgive me." Everyone's expressions became strange. This fellow really knows when to yield and when to stand tall. Yi Xian was slightly speechless as well. He hadn't expected that this fellow would directly apologize. Meanwhile, the Yuan Venerables and the others gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I don't mind. It was just a misunderstanding, so why would I mind? Lord Yin, I was a little heavy-handed just now. Don't take it to heart." Lord Yin glanced at Yi Xian and said, "I won't." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I hope we'll be able to cooperate well in the future. After all, the boundless divine crystal is our true objective. Lord Yin, you must think of the bigger picture. Don't launch sneak attacks." Jun Daolin nodded slightly. "Think of the bigger picture." The other in-action realm experts nodded successively as well. Actually, they were afraid that Yi Xian would continue to kill Lord Yin. If that was the case, they would be on guard against Yi Xian. After all, as Lord Yin had said, even though Lord Yin had offended Yi Xian, it wasn't to the extent of killing him. Of course, Lord Yin's brain wasn't very good. She had cultivated for so many years, yet she didn't train her brain. Meanwhile, Lord Yin spoke solemnly. What are you talking about, Lord Yi? Even though I, Lord Yin, have a bad temper, I still see the bigger picture. Yi Xian smiled and said, then let's continue forward. Everyone continued forward. Dao Ling, who stood by Yi Xian's side, smiled and said, I'm slightly surprised. Yi Xian smiled lightly. Surprised that I didn't kill him? Dao Ling nodded. Yi Xian glanced at Lord Yin in the distance. If he could kill him, he would definitely kill him. He wouldn't leave any future trouble for himself. But the problem was that he'd lost the best opportunity to kill him. Without activating his bloodline, it would still be difficult for him to kill an inaction realm expert. Moreover, Lord Yin was preparing to flee just now. Once he fled, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. After all, he was an inaction realm cultivator. Moreover, Lord Yin had already apologized. If he still wanted to kill him, Jun Daolin and the other inaction realm experts would be wary of him. It was definitely better to have a few more friends than a few more enemies. Dao Ling suddenly said, be careful when crossing the river. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the black river in front of him. Is there something fishy at the bottom of the river? Dao Ling nodded and said, there's an unknown creature. I don't know what it is exactly. Yi Xian said, this river is less than 1,000 feet wide. With everyone's strength, we can cross it in the blink of an eye. At this point, he said solemnly, there's something wrong with the sky above the river? Dao Ling nodded and said, the spacetime above the Black River is very strange. It's a distorted spacetime like a maze. This is also why we didn't cross the river in the past. That spacetime is too strange. After entering it, we don't have the confidence to walk out or return. Spacetime. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. What is it that I'm least afraid of? All sorts of spacetime. Dao Ling looked at Yi Xian and said, I know your sword is slightly special. Can you take the lead? Take the lead. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, no problem. As he spoke, he took a step forward. The spacetime beneath his feet rippled, and in the next moment, an unknown starry sky domain appeared before him. At this moment, Dao Ling and others also showed up behind him. Yi Xian took a look in front of him. In front of him, there were countless spacetime tunnels. Not only that, but these spacetime tunnels also reflected countless people like mirrors. It's strange. Yi Xian furrowed his brows and looked around. In the end, he opened his palm, and the Qingxian sword trembled slightly. He slowly closed his eyes, and a moment later, he looked into the distance. Follow me. As he spoke, he walked towards one of the spacetime tunnels. However, as soon as he walked over, the spacetime there started to distort. Their expressions changed drastically. Yi Xian suddenly said, suppress. As soon as he finished speaking, the azure sword in his hand trembled slightly. In the next moment, the warped spacetime returned to normal. Everyone instantly heaved sighs of relief when they witnessed this scene. They continued forward. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. 6 men with spears in their hands had suddenly appeared not too far away from him. All of them were naked from the waist up, and their bodies were covered in all sorts of blood-red talisman markings. 6 of them were still alive. Behind the 6 of them was an altar. A woman was lying on the altar. She wore a black dress, and her face was covered with a blood-red veil. The expressions of Yi Xian and the others became solemn when they witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, the azure sword trembled slightly. At the same time, Soul's voice resounded in Yi Xian's mind, young master, retreat. Retreat. Her voice carried a trace of terror. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically, and he immediately said, retreat. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to retreat. However, at this moment, the 6 spear-wielding men suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils constricted. With a command in his heart, the azure sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. An ancient spear stabbed towards him. Bang! The sword shield trembled violently, and Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, he swiftly turned his head. As soon as he turned his head, he saw the head of the Source Venerable on his right fly into the air. It wasn't just the Source Venerable, but the heads of Jun Daolin, and Beishan, Daoling, and the others had flown into the air as well. Besides him, everyone else here had been instantly killed. All of them had been instantly killed. Yi Xian's face instantly turned pale. He didn't even have the ability to fight back. Meanwhile, the 6 men with spears turned to look at Yi Xian, and one of them was about to attack when a voice resounded from the altar. Wait! The man immediately stopped when he heard this. The 6 of them slowly turned to look at the woman on the altar in the distance, and then they knelt in unison with their heads on the ground. They first looked at the woman who had walked down from the altar. The woman's face was covered by a blood-red veil, so their formation couldn't be seen. The woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and with a command in his heart, the azure sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. At this moment, the woman pressed her fingers together and pointed at the sword shield. In the next moment, bang! The sword shield shattered and transformed into fragments that filled the sky. Yi Xian's mind went blank. The azure sword had shattered. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.